now entering the Bass Galaxy.
This is Teal's Bass Galaxy. I'm your host. This podcast is about raw, real conversations with real awesome people about bass fishing, bass boats, and heck, there are no limits in the galaxy. Attention all Bastronauts. This podcast is supported by the Bass Galaxy's title sponsor, Waypoint Angler Supply, the Midwest's new landing pad for hardcore anglers just like you and me. If you're looking for the sneaky goods you can't find anywhere else, look no further. Waypoint Angler Supply has the largest offering of JDM tackle in the Midwest, and they are right here in Minnesota on Lake Minnetonka. This is truly a place every bass fisherman in Minnesota needs to visit because we finally have a tackle shop in the state that's as dreamy as the ones you find down south. And the staff at Waypoint Angler Supply understands the various needs of us anglers, which is why you'll find the selection there so enticing. Ross and the folks at Waypoint Angler Supply are passionate about carrying the right stuff, providing an authentic customer experience, and they listen to the anglers. And it doesn't end at JDM baits. They stock all the top U.S. brands, as well as local Minnesota brands like Vocelka Fishing and Customs, Arsenal Fishing, Bait Lab Custom Swim Baits, All Terrain Tackle, Bagley Northland, Outcast Tackle, and more. So stop into their store on Lake Minnetonka or visit their website, waypointanglersupply.com. That's waypointanglersupply.com. Use the code GALAXY20 to save 20% on your next tackle binge. Today's guest hails from the land of Wisconsin. In fact, if you hadn't heard of this guy before he fished the Bassmaster Elite Series, you weren't from the Midwest, because he won absolutely everything there was to win in Wisconsin. And I don't think there's a more dominant angler, at the local level in his time. And he also double qualified for the Bassmaster Elite Series. He's somebody I've looked up to for a long time and wanted to have on here. So we finally got him out. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about Pat Schlapper. Hello, Bastronauts. This is a message of gratitude for myself, all your support that you've shown the Bass Galaxy and Teal's Bass Galaxy podcast, and just very grateful to all the guests and people who've tuned in so far. We want to keep this show rolling for all of you who keep tuning in. So it'd be great if you'd be willing to subscribe to our YouTube channel and support, all the great sponsors that keep the Bass Galaxy rolling and ever expanding. And always open to feedback, but your support is greatly appreciated. So hit that subscribe button, check out our sponsors, and we look forward to bringing you even more intergalactic content. Thank you. Well, honestly, Noah Schultz to me is Minnesota's version of like what Pat Schlapper was in Wisconsin, like just scary. Like you show up to the ramp in the morning and you see that guy in that boat and everybody, reels backwards a little bit.
Well, see, and I may have, did he used to run an old, like a Red Gambler?
Yeah.
So I think the one Champions Tour event I fished, which I think was the first year they had that open on Gull.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure I seen that boat. So I remember him talking about all the problems he had with it over the years. So I guess I did, and I'm sure he beat me because I had a horrible event. That was the first and last Champions Tour I ever fished. So
it's a weird format. Like it'll spin you around.
It wasn't for me, and it wasn't for me.
Well, you spent your whole life doing it one way, so like. For me, it was a hard change, and I haven't been doing it as long as you. But, Pat, I appreciate you making the trip. I know Wisconsin's famous for their beer and cheese, and like they got this spotted cow, but I've got this Sleeper Minnesota beer that I wanted you to try. I'm wondering if you've ever heard of it. It's called Houndstein beer.
No, I've never heard of it.
Okay.
No.
We're going to have us one.
Okay.
Hey,
All right,
Cole, do you have
that's
my
good.
keys? My bottle opener's on them. Oh, no. They're in my pocket. No, but I wanted you to try this because... And any Minnesotan who hasn't tried a Houndstein...
Obviously a German beer.
Yeah. I don't know, dude. It's brewed in New Ulm. And it's been around since 1864. I think it gives Grain Belt a run.
Oh, well, Grain Belt's good. That's a good beer.
But I know you do these like you're like the king of boat snacks.
Yep.
So we're gonna do like but beer today.
Okay, let's.
And I don't know. Are you a spotted cow guy?
I like Spotted Cow. It's good. Probably one of the best tasting beers you'll ever have, in my opinion. But a man can't. You don't want to have more than 3-4 of them. You know, it just make you feel a little bunky in the morning. But as far as taste, it's in my top 3 for sure. For sure. Yep.
You Grain Belt man or?
I like Grain Belt. I wouldn't say I go out and buy a sixer of it, but there's times where if they got it somewhere, I'll get it. It's good. It's good.
Well, I think this gives Grain Belt a run.
Houndstein beer.
The beer with the little character.
Okay.
Brewed in New Ulm, Minnesota. Cheers, dude.
Let's do it. That's pretty good.
Right?
Yeah, it's good. It tastes a little bit like a Shiner to me.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've had a Shiner
Yeah.
bock. It tastes a little bit like that. Maybe not quite as heavy, but
I think it's smooth, man.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's smooth. There's no weird Pabst Blue Ribbon taste to it. It's wonderful.
no, it is good. I'd say if it tastes like cat piss, and it's good.
I think it might be the new nectar of the gods.
Oh,
It might be.
just don't start calling it a Houndstein latte, or I will immediately stop drinking it.
No, I'd never heard of this beer before, though.
Oh, you've never had it?
No. Well, this is my first case. This kid name's Alan Aronson. His parents own that New Ulm distributor down there.
Okay.
And he's like, dude, have you ever tried the Houndstein beer? I'm like, Houndstein? I've never tried that before. So he gave me a case, and I'm like, I texted him after I had one. I'm like, dude, this shit is good. Where can I get this stuff?
Yeah,
so I don't know where you can get it, but it's good.
Yeah, here I thought that you had been like a lifetime Houndstein drinker, and you're just exposing me to it, but we got a couple first-timers. That's even more exciting.
Yep. My Houndstein life was born about a week ago, and I saved about 4 for us today.
Nice. I appreciate it. That's good. I'll maybe put that on the list of if I see it, I'll buy a sixer of it. And it's
Absolutely.
good. It's good.
Well, dude, like, I'm so jacked to have you out here because I think, I don't know, I've been watching you tournament fish or just been around you, I guess, for a long time. I remember Shields Media little shoot we did back on Nest Lake. That was the first time I had met you. And, I mean, you could just do everything. I remember that day, and such a nice guy. But then we fished against each other a little bit. But I'm excited to share your story a little bit with people because I think you fly under the radar as far as what you've done, especially within this region. I think, like, super special. And then there's not a lot of guys who made it to that next level. So, dude, I just want to congratulate you on all your accomplishments. And I guess I want to dig a little bit into, like, the birth of Pat Schlapper.
Yeah, it's interesting. I appreciate you having me. I've kind of been watching this grow. I've listened to a lot of them, and it kind of popped up on one of my lists on Spotify, and I'm like, I know that name, and I started listening to them, and then it's pretty cool to be here and be in the galaxy, drinking a Houndstein and eating pizza. So, yeah, my story is kind of unique as far as getting to the Elite Series at a little bit older age by bass fishing years. And I mean, it started back in basically 6th grade. I met a friend in math, Mr. Shattuck's math class. We were sitting at the back table, and we happened to be sitting by each other. His name was Josh Peck, his brother-in-law fished tournaments, bass tournaments, and I grew up fishing. Like that's what I did. I grew up on a river fishing for everything.
Sure.
And never fished tournament. Didn't really know anything about them.
Yeah.
And then this guy's name was Kevin Barch, and little guy. He actually passed away a few years ago from cancer. He had a lot of health problems, but he was super upbeat, very good angler. Had some really good tournaments back in the Costa or whatever it was, Everstart level tournaments.
Yep.
And he kind of exposed me to it and took me under his wing and just taught me a lot about just tournament fishing in general and bass fishing, because obviously I hadn't bass fished much.
Sure. And
from then on, I just became obsessed with it. And I could talk about it all day of what the different things that I went through getting to this point, but he's really the one that got me into the tournament scene at a young age. 7th grade, I started fishing tournaments.
Cool.
Yeah, either my dad or Josh's dad would have to bring us to the landing in the boat, and we had a Smoker Craft phaser with a 90 horse Merc, the old autopilot trolling motor. Our batteries died every tournament, and they would drop us off and then come pick us up. And we cashed a few checks and thought, it was fun. 19 boat tournaments. It was a big deal back then.
So you live in Eau Claire now, not to interrupt you, but where is that where you grew up then too?
No, I actually grew up about an hour and 20 minutes north of there in Spooner, Wisconsin.
Oh, sure.
So it's more in the heart of, there's a lot more fishing up there. You're real close to Hayward. The lakes in like the Amory area I fished, like Wapagasset, Bone Lake, Balsam Lake, you've probably been on a few of them.
Sure.
So that was the area I grew up on. My home lake would be, I'm not even going to say it because I don't want anybody else going there because it's one of the best lakes in the state.
We don't need to say it.
But I grew up on a lake. I was fortunate that one set of grandparents had a house on this lake.
Okay.
And it is infested with big smallmouth and largemouth. And when I was a kid, so basically when Kevin got me started, right?
Yep.
There was two baits that got me started. It was a 5-inch Kalin's grub and a 6-inch culprit, and culprit worm
river and tail
on an 1/8 ounce jig head. That's what he taught me. That's
jig
worm. Yep. And I didn't know it was called that, but so I would walk up and down the docks by my grandparents. When I was a kid, throwing that Kalin's grub and catching these big smallmouth, and I was very blessed to grow up in that area because we had really good fishing in every direction. You could go 15 minutes and be on another really good lake.
Cool.
So that's kind of where I moved to Eau Claire in college in 2002 or 2003.
Did you go to Eau Claire?
Yeah.
So you walked up that big set of stairs every day?
Not very often. I didn't do much on the upper campus. I walked across the bridge a lot over the river, but the upper campus, the only time I went up there, I had a couple I had badminton up there.
Yep.
I had kinesiology or some bullshit like that. But I got a teaching degree, so the majority of my stuff was on the lower campus.
Sure.
So, I spent because I went to school for 2 years in Rice Lake at the UW Barron County, and then I went up there for the last 3 years. Graduated in 2006 is when I graduated from college.
Jeez, you're actually not that much. Graduated from college. Never mind.
Yeah, that's college, not high school.
Yep.
High school was
never been a
2001.
math guy.
Yeah, so that's where I went to college, and then when I went to that area, it kind of got into a whole nother area of lakes that I hadn't fished a whole lot.
Sure.
Shiitake chain, red cedar, big shiitake, which is kind of in between where I grew up and Eau Claire, but the tournaments I fished never went to those lakes. So then that's where I really kind of feel like I kind of went, I started winning a lot of tournaments when I was a eighth grade, 9th grade. I started winning a lot of those local tournaments.
Sure.
The ones that I fished.
So pretty young.
Pretty young, yeah.
I mean, you started in 6th, 7th grade.
Yeah.
And by 8th and 9th, you were winning local stuff.
Yeah, more. I think the first quote unquote big one that we won. And I fished with my dad. Like Josh kind of got out of it, the original partner.
Must have got a girlfriend or
No,
something.
I don't remember. He worked a lot. Like he's a big time worker.
Yep. Big work guy.
Construction guy.
Oh, yep.
So his dad owned a construction company. He kind of went that route. And I remember a tournament on North Sand, and Josh couldn't fish, so I had my dad fish with me. And then he kind of like fell in love with it. And so him and I fished. I mean, I don't even know how many tournaments him and I have won in that area.
You and your dad?
Me and my dad, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, he's still.
So you got your dad into fishing.
Well, he got,
kinda.
yeah.
He got you into fishing.
Yeah.
But then you learned a bunch of stuff and then took him back.
Yep, and it worked out great because, like, at that point, like, I would turn into I love throwing a jig, still love throwing a jig.
Yep.
And he would always throw a tube. He's a tube guy.
I love a tube and a jig.
So do I.
Both.
So do I. And so we just fished really well together because he would kind of let me do my thing, and then all of a sudden, at the end of the day, he'd have half the fish in the live well caught on his tube.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
And the tube that he threw became known in that area as the Schlapper tube. Like, everybody knew he threw it.
No kidding.
And it's just like, did you get him on that damn Schlapper tube again? He'd just be like, yeah, we got him.
So what's the Schlapper tube? I'm a big tube guy.
It's discontinued big bite tube. Yeah, it's a discontinued one. I have several thousand of them, but I can show you. I can show you after. I can tell you after because it's still
no problem.
It's still like I caught Santee Cooper my second year. I caught a 912 on it, and I caught 7. Like, I had 26.5 pounds that day, and they all came on it.
I got some magic tubes. Not that magic though. Jeepers.
Well, that one was funny because, like, we're getting way off course from the original question, but
hey, it's the Galaxy, dude.
I had found this pod of beds, and Santee Cooper's like another level of how they spawn down. There'll be like 4 on a bed.
Dang,
big ones.
Dang brothel.
Yeah, they're in there just a whomping. So I found this gigantic one, and there was three males with it, 4-pound males roughly. Or I lied, that one had 3. There was two males and then that big one.
Takes that many to knock the eggs out?
I don't know. This thing was big.
Holy smokes.
Like, I had caught. I mean, I've caught a handful over 10. I've caught a 12. I caught an 11. You know, I've caught some big ones, but I'm like, geez, this thing is giant. This thing's big. And there was like 5 or 6 beds in this little area, and I had caught some of them. In this big one, I could not get to bite. I could not get him to bite. And I had that tube sitting there for fishing brush piles. And I'm like, I'm going to throw this sumbitch in there. Second cast, I catch it. And then I go to this bed that had 2 7s and a 4 on it. Throw it in there, catch the 1-4. Throw it in there, catch the other 7. I'm just like, and I had thrown everything at these things.
Call Dad and be like, still got it.
No, like, I said it on stage. I'm like, I had it sitting there, and I was just like, that's what my dad would be throwing. I picked it up and just jacked big fish for the tournament, and, you know, end up coming back. Like, I mean, I was in 4th. I ended up getting 10th in the tournament. It was a good tournament, but so yeah, that tube is a very, very big part of my arsenal still. I weigh a lot of fish on it.
I think it's probably one of my it's top 3 confidence baits for me, no matter where I go, for sure. But there's a lot of ways to rig it, and I think it's a super versatile bait.
Yep.
Is there a couple different ways you like to rig it? Like, obviously in brush piles, obviously
Texas rig
with a weight.
Yep, and I never peg it. The only time I'll
like
ever,
the only way I don't fish it.
Yeah, the only time I'll peg it is if I'm actually, you know, skipping docks with it, or if I'm, you know, truly flipping a tree, you know, just to be able to skip it. But 99% of the time, it's unpegged with no heavier than a 5/16 ounce sinker.
See, I have an issue. My favorite thing to Texas rig is a Texas rig craw tube unpegged, right? But
it's
a regular tube, I struggle with keeping it on the hook right.
You gotta have the right hook.
Yeah. So, like, what hook do you use? Because I've been struggling with that recently.
Yeah, and this is another.
Is this a nugget we need?
It's a nugget, but it's kind of. It's no, we don't need to cut it. I don't really care at this point because, I mean, it's really hard to get the tubes, and like this.
Well, this is the hook now. So
well, yeah, and this hook works with it. I mean, if you throw if you're I don't like it on a craw tube because I throw craw tube a lot.
I got the craw tube hook figured out.
What do you
It's
use?
the regular tube that I don't.
What do you use a craw tube? Do you use like a 5/0 EWG or what?
3 or 4/0 EWG.
See,
I like that decoy uppercut hook lately.
Really?
A lot. Or just a Gami. Actually, down south you can't get away with it, but up here I like a light wire EWG, and I just change them out more when they roll, you know?
Yeah. So on this particular tube I'm talking about, and any other 3.5 to up to a 4-inch tube, so you go back to the old Shaw Grigsby Eagle Claw HP hook. It had a clip on it. It's a shiner hook is what it is.
Okay.
It's like a kale hook where it looks like a circle hook.
Yep.
I started with the Eagle Claw HPs, and it was like, holy balls, this is good. But the problem with them is they were just kind of, the hooks just weren't that good. They weren't that sharp, inconsistent. But I mean, I've won a lot of money on it. So then what we started doing is buying just a saltwater hook. You buy the owner. It's a owner. I don't know what it's kale hook. I mean, you know what hook I'm talking about? Like if you go shiner fishing, you hook it through the tail. It's kind of a hybrid of a circle hook and
Yep.
But you gotta tie a keeper on it. You tie a fluorocarbon keeper on it.
That's what I was going to ask you, because the biggest issue I have is the head slipping on me with any hook I've tried. So to me, a screw lock Texas rig hook to me would make sense. Is this like
This is like it's there's a little, you tie a little fluorocarbon keeper just like you would on a flipping hook.
Yep.
And then when you rig it, and then I'll take it, and this is you bend it up like just a little bit, like 3-4 degrees.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, it's the best hook for that. Like you will lose very few fish if you have that angle right.
Yeah.
And it stays rigged. Like it doesn't tear the head out very often. I mean, it can, but
I feel like you just gave me the Culver's Butterburger recipe.
this is,
My goodness.
I'm telling you, it's not. I've never and now it was for a long time. I was like, I don't tell anybody, but now it's like, well, I don't, whatever. It's a hook, but it's a big deal.
So there's no bend in the hook. It's a circle hook, right? So
It's kind of like a circle hook, but it doesn't have the beak on the point.
Yep. And then you're tying that fluorocarbon, by the shank, just like, owner cover shot or something like that.
Yep.
Is that, sorry, this is like my inner tube nerd spinning here. The eye where you tie on, is that coming out the center of the tube or?
Yeah, the center. Yeah, you just Texas rig it, just go right down the middle, slide it up over that keeper, pop it up, snug the keeper to the tube, rig it through. It's always straight because of the shape of that hook. I mean, Shaw Grigsby knew what he was talking about when he made that hook. It just happened to be a piece of shit hook.
Sure.
And the clip, honestly, was, do you remember them with the little metal clip?
Yeah.
They had a little metal clip, and it was fine, but it would tear out often.
Yep.
Where with this hook, it doesn't tear out. The keeper is doing the work. The keeper is is doing what the clip does. Now, this hook is not really good for anything else.
I could see that.
Because, I've tried it with, like, a beaver or, like, a brush hog, and it does hook them good, but it tears them out right away. It has to do with that. In this particular tube, it's not like a flipping tube where it's filled at the top, there's a little bit of solid head up there.
Sure.
So I think having that hollow cavity and a little bit of thickness at the top is what makes, and just the shape of it, because like for me, like I don't throw EWG hooks unless I absolutely have to, with a couple exceptions. There's one that I really like and a couple that I can modify to make work. I love throwing a straight shank, like whether if I'm flipping like I flip a fighting frog a ton, any beaver style bait. I love a straight shank, but I don't like a straight shank on a tube because I can't rig it.
No,
it just doesn't sit
either.
right, and I don't want it to be janky on the action. So this particular hook is kind of specialized for a tube, and in particular, this tube is what's the best one that I've found on it.
Because it's got a little more solid head.
It's got a little more solid head. There's no salt in it. It's super buoyant.
Sure.
That's the other thing, too, why I don't peg it. It's a completely different action, completely different. It's yeah.
Does it?
Yeah.
Will it float with the hook?
Well, I don't know if it'll sit.
Or it's just more
float,
neutrally.
But yes. So
which there's something to that.
Sinker falls, hits the bottom, and It's. I mean, if I had all the money in a pile that me, my dad, Wade, Mike, Justin, a few other people, if I had all that money on the table that we've won on that, like, it'd be a lot. It would be a lot. It's over 20 years.
Nick Gross, a mentor of mine, taught me the unpegged craw tube thing, and we did very well on like that semi-slack shake with it, getting that bait to separate from the weight, and it was like a damn jig worm on a weed line. You could fish it and get bites like a drop shot or a jig worm anywhere you go, and it's still on my deck, I mean, all the time. Yeah,
it's a big deal. Very rarely will I not have, if it's a largemouth event or anything I'm fishing offshore, I'll have it out. I'll at least have it rigged in the box, because it's just something that people fish it. Well, people do fish a tube a lot for smallmouth, not as much as they used to because of the Ned rig and all the other stuff now. But very few people fish it for largemouth, and if they do, it's a craw tube. You know, and honestly, a craw tube is more of a northern thing. Like, you get down
for sure. I've
other
noticed
parts of the country, you know, people are like, "The hell's a craw tube?" You know what I mean?
That's why I tried to throw it as much as I could down there.
It works. I mean,
does.
I still throw it. I still always have. I mean, I've caught a lot of big fish on a craw tube, but I throw this one more because it's I've got more confidence in it. I think you get more bites. It gets big bites. The system that I have for just rigging it and throwing it is, I just have supreme confidence. If I get a bite and I hook them, it's coming in the boat. So it's deadly.
So as far as like weight goes, I was raised on the lighter end of the weight spectrum, was how I was kind of brought up fishing, and I've met a lot of people who are on the heavier end of that weight spectrum. I think with a tube, if I'm putting a weight in a tube that's like a goby weight, I like a 1/2 ounce. But on like that unpegged deal, I like a quarter or 5/16. Or have you found something similar with that?
Yeah, 99% of the time it's I throw 3/16 a lot.
Oh, sure.
3/16, quarter, or 5/16.
Yeah.
If I'm fishing a little deeper or it's windy, I'll go to a 3/8. But I don't think I've ever thrown anything heavier than, unless I'm like, if I'm doodling around in foil or something, then I'll go to a 5/8 or 3/4. But
but it's kind of a power finesse style of fishing.
Yes.
So I guess that's where I was getting at with it, because a lot of people hear us talking and assume you're flipping something, but like this style of tube fishing, it's not talked about very often.
No, very rarely. And I throw it on.
Which is why we should stop pretty soon.
Yeah, but I don't really care. I mean, it's like, because the people that know, you're not going to go and like figure it out. And like, I'm sponsored by Big Bite, but they don't make it anymore. You know, they don't make it anymore. So it's like, I'm fortunate to still have access to them when I need them, but it's not like you can go out and buy them unless you find somewhere that has a stock of them or something like that. So, and honestly, it's probably, you could do it with a regular tube. You know,
I just need you to look and grab, 5 different things that you would maybe want, and we're gonna maybe propose a horse trade after the show.
I've got several thousand of them at home. It's a good bait.
Cool, man. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, we spun off in that direction.
Yeah.
I don't remember where we were going, but that was a good tidbit.
We were talking about the glory of Pat Schlapper and the rise of Pat Schlapper in Wisconsin bass fishing, which is something pretty cool. And you were talking about kind of that initial success you had with your dad, I think.
Yep.
And he fished a tube, you fished a jig.
Yep.
Kind of learning that 1-2 punch in the boat, which to me, team tournament fishing, that's super important.
Yeah.
And you found success in the sport pretty early from the sounds of it. And I guess we're going to, like, what you built in Wisconsin was the fear of God of every angler fishing against you. And probably, I don't think there's a human being who's won more tournaments in Wisconsin than Pat Schlapper. And I'm not a math guy and I'm not a statistician, but dude, like, the rise of that and developing that confidence on the water, developing that dominance in the state of Wisconsin and beyond, like, that's something everybody wants to do. It's something that everybody wants to do when they sign up for a tournament, and you cracked a code, dude.
Yeah, it's when when I moved to Eau Claire, and I started working at Shields part-time when I was in college, and like I said, I was out of my comfort zone of up north on all the lakes I had fished. And when I moved to Eau Claire, I think I still fished that circuit with my dad, but there was, back then, it was the Wisconsin team circuit was the tournament to fish. And I hadn't fished. I remember the first one was in 2008, I think. Like, it was Lake Wissota. I had never been on it. And then it was Big Chautauqua chain, and Long Lake or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I started fishing with Rob Ewell, who was another guy who worked at Shields, my age, and he was a manager there. And so he didn't get to practice a lot. He runs the Omaha store now. Like, he's a big wig now.
Yeah.
Still one of my best friends, but that was kind of the deal with him. He didn't get to practice a lot, so I would go out and practice. Well, I started, we go out on Wissota, and figured that out pretty quick. Won that pretty handily. And then that first year we won Team of the Year, right? Which was a big deal. That was like 50 boats, 45, 50 boats.
Dude, that's a big deal.
And so it was kind of a big deal with all the guys that I had heard of a few of them, but I hadn't really fished against them because it was a different part of the state.
The Steve Menzies of the world?
Steve Menz was one of them. That was kind of at the end. He still does good, but
he was kind of the guy before you, I think.
Well, there was another guy up there his name's Jay Slagstead. Okay. Do you know him?
Mm-mm.
That was the guy where when you seen him show up at Long Lake, Red Cedar, Big Chautauqua chain, you were like, you ain't beating them. You're not beating them. And I remember this was kind of where, like, Rob and I were doing really good, and we won Team of the Year every year we fished. And then he ended up moving because he was in the store leadership program for Shields, so he had to move all over the country. So he left. Well, then I got with Mike McAvoy, who is another name you probably haven't heard of because he's real under the radar. He doesn't even tournament fish anymore. Very rarely I can get him
now. So
him and I started fishing together. He also worked at Shields. And this is where we really started blowing shit up.
Sure.
Is side imaging had just started to come out, right? And he's always done really good too, and the guy he fished with moved, and we got together, and I remember I bought a 797, or I think I bought a 797, then I ended up getting a bigger one, a 997, and Mike bought a 797, right? And very few people had this back then.
Yep.
And the people that did have them didn't really take the time to learn how to fish them.
Yep.
And I remember fishing against Jay Slagstead, and the whole talk of everything was like, what's he doing? How is he beating everybody? And I'm friends with Jay. Like, he's a really good guy. Now I am. Back then, when he was just one of those mythical figures that you were scared to talk to.
Yep.
So I remember talking to Mike, and I'm like, what do you think he's doing? Why is he so good? And he's like, I don't care what he's doing. Let's just figure out how to beat him. And I'm like, yeah, who cares what he's doing? And so Mike unlocked this deal up there on several lakes.
Are you ready to reel in your next home purchase or refinance? Supreme Lending's Dream Team can help guide you through the entire mortgage process, from pre-qualification to closing. They have a wide variety of home loan programs in their tackle box, including down payment assistance and first-time home buyer options. Just ask me. I trusted Aaron Dagas, a bass fisherman just like you and me, and Supreme Lending's Dream Team to help finance my first home. Contact Aaron Dagas and the Dream Team today by scanning the QR code or giving them a call at 763-326-0677. That's 763-326-0677. Did I catch a 7 in there? Or visit their website, aarondages.supremelending.com. That's AARONDAEGES.supremelending.com. This podcast is brought to you by my compadre, my tournament partner, my brother, And the best rod builder above the Mason-Dixon line, Vocelka Fishing and Customs. Specializing in custom fishing rods. That's right. Hand-built fishing rods, custom-made and tailored how you want, whether it's by length, action, specific technique, balance, or anything you want. Anything. Vocelka Fishing and Customs can build it. Mr. Vocelka also has a wide variety of rods to choose from, which we've had a lot of fun with, perfecting and testing. The most unique and famous rod developed at Vocelka Fishing and Customs is his custom marabou hair jig rod. Have you thrown the old Canadian dinnerman, the Harry Gary, the fighter fly, the old thin Lizzie? If you have, then you know these little fluff balls can be hard to cast, especially at those key sizes as light as 1/16 of an ounce. Well, what if I told you you could cast that marabou jig 30 to 50% farther than you're casting it now? What if I told you you don't have to spook those shallow, skittish smallmouth? Well, with the custom hair jig rod from Vocelka Fishing and Customs, not only can you cast a lot further, but the way this rod loads up on a long cast is pure perfection. This balanced rod has the perfect backbone with a light action parabolic taper that keeps those fish pinned without breaking your line. Mr. Vocelka utilizes an 8-foot custom fly fishing blank converted to a spinning rod and couples it with premium guides leading up to custom fly guides that allow maximized casting distance and reduced line friction and blank slap, maximizing your overall performance, obviously. And we found this rod is not only perfect for marabou hair jigs, but for any light bait you need to cast far, including small swim baits, spy baits, and more. Any light bait you need to cast far, look no further than the Vocelka Fishing and Customs Hair Jig Special. So head on over to his website, vocelkafishing.com. That's VOCELKA fishing.com. And treat yourself to the custom hair jig rod or any custom rod you can dream up.
It started on Chetek Chain. There's this tournament. It's called the Big Green Monster. This 2-day tournament.
Cool.
The biggest tournament on Chetek Chain every year. 2-day tournament. Good payout. We had never fished it before. And he figured this deal out before that tournament. He called me. He said, hey, I think I figured something out. And he kind of explained it to me. I'm like, okay, I know some other stuff that's like that. And we ended up just beating everybody. Turned a lot of heads because we had never fished it. And I think Jay got second. We all of a sudden were a factor. And then we rolled that into pretty much every other lake up there and just put the hurting on the boys for a lot of years. And it got tougher because people, we call them burgle boys or spot grubbers, where they just see you and they go fish it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it just, which we figured out a way to beat that too. We were always one step ahead of them.
What'd you do to beat that? Like, how do you stop that?
This is where like one of my like McAvoy, I'll get to how we beat it, but Mike is the best offshore structure fisherman I've ever been in the boat with. Like, he's like, I'm pretty decent at it, but he's like on another level.
Cool.
Another level of like, well, put it this way. So the one lake, because Mike basically the year that he kind of retired, we won a big tournament up on Turtle Flambeau Flowage. We won a boat, this championship, right? And I
remember that.
He's like, I'm done.
We spun a hub that day, and you reminded me how dumb we were for not changing our prop.
Did you fish it?
Well, I fished one UMBCS championship against you on the Flambeau Flowage. And
well, then that was it, yeah.
Yeah, Hatton and I spun a hub, and day 2 we got a new hub, and we caught him day 2, but
Yeah.
I learned a good lesson from you that day about a spare prop.
Yeah, you got to have a spare prop and
spare
the stuff and the stuff to change it.
Yep. I think we had a prop, not a spare hub. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So anyhow, he kind of quit then, but we would still fish that Chetek Chain 2-day tournament. There's 2 tournaments on Chetek Chain. We'd fish the one in the spring and then the 2-day. And like I think we've only not won it 3 years out of
Yeah.
since 2009 or whatever.
Yeah.
In the one year we got second, third, and fourth the other years, but he just got, what really put him over the edge was just dealing with all the people that would just pull up on you and start fishing. But anyhow, another lake that we do really well on, last year or 2 years ago, when I was fishing the elites, I couldn't fish it. So my buddy Wade talked him into fishing it. And we had been doing really good up there all the years. Well, all of a sudden Mike goes up there, hasn't fished it in 5 years. And he just unlocks all this other stuff that we've just completely ignored.
What?
Like Wade calls me, he's like, you know that little bay over by the whatever? And like, yeah. He goes, Mike found a freaking deal over there. And so they just like won all them tournaments. He just can just show up and like, he'll find just, he's the best at like finding the cast angle.
Oh, yeah.
Or idling by at the right angle to see something that 99% of the people don't see. You know, like idling by it on the inside versus the outside. And he'll be, there's a lot that goes into
baby
that.
Nugget.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah. And because like he'll call me back when he'd call me like, did you see that up by this spot? Like, no, I spent an hour up there. Well, go to this waypoint, idle by it, going north, not south. And I'm like, okay. Go up there. I'm like, what in the hell?
No way.
Oh, dude, he like had like a lot of our tournament success in that era was him finding obscure stuff that hadn't been fished because they were all big ones. And they were unmolested. Like you'd throw anything in there and they'd just be swimming off with it.
Was it like near good shit, or was it this little small stuff?
No, it was all right by the stuff.
Yeah,
but he, like
yeah,
I said, he'd be the king of. You'd see 5 boats pull up, and he'd be like, no, and then we'd pull up. He'd be like, no, you got to cast this way, and it's insane.
I love that.
I can't even explain. And
I've had moments like that, but not like. I wish I could do it every day.
He's super consistent. Like wherever we went within that group of lakes and some other ones, he would always find tournament winning stuff. And obviously I found stuff too, and I would fine tune a lot of what he would find.
Yep.
And like I was telling you before, like I have a really weird memory where like if I idled by a stump on a lake 6 years ago and didn't even mark it, and he was like, hey, I caught some on stumps that were in this deep of water by this, if there's rock by, and I'd be like, oh shit, there's one over here, and I'd be so that was where I would come in, as I would be able to expand on it a lot, and like kind of think a couple steps ahead.
Yep.
So that was where we really kind of pioneered the way that we fished, and that we won a lot of tournaments.
Sure.
You know, and that's how I like to fish still. And like when he kind of retired, then I got with Wade, who I've known forever.
Yep.
And he's the same type of deal. Like he's really good at finding stuff, puts in a lot of work, and we mesh really well. And so yeah, that's where it just kind of took off, was in like 2008 when we started winning all those team circuit tournaments, and any other tournament we got in, we would have a chance at win. We would do well. Not saying we would win every one of them. We'd win quite a few of them, but
more than dude, like an insane amount.
Yeah, it was a lot. It's to the point where I had this talk with Wade like two years ago, not this last year, the year before. He had what he called a rough year, and I'm like, dude, we won 3 tournaments already, and like you've had one tournament you haven't got a check in all year. Like there's people that don't win a tournament in 10 years. Yeah. I'm like, you're still doing good. Like it almost came to where there was like, not that you expected to win, but you were disappointed if you didn't win or get second or third. You know, it's just an expectation in our mind. But we worked a lot harder than most people too. So, we did. I think in a lot of ways we did earn that. Earn a lot of them victories. So
absolutely, you did. I mean. And there's a common theme with every one of the best anglers I've talked to. Schultz, like the time on the water thing and putting your time in and that hard work is a common theme. And I don't consider myself any more talented than anybody else. So it's kind of my personal mantra to try and work harder than everybody else, because that's the only way I feel like I'm going to succeed. And sometimes you work really hard and you still do not very good, but I guess you can work really hard and not do good. But it sounds like you guys figured out kind of a recipe to make your time the most worthwhile, and that's ultimately what it boils down to. And there's a lot of ways to skin the cat in this sport, right? And
Yeah.
I guess, did you find that there was a certain way you could always skin it?
No, that was the other thing where Mike and I meshed really well, is like, I mean, he's a good smallmouth fisherman, but he's not, like, he would never tell you he's like a great sight fisherman. Where, like, that's always been a strength of mine.
Sure.
And, like, just smallmouth in the spring in general, like, we would do good, whether it was throwing a jerkbait or sight fishing, or, you know, we won a lot of sight fishing tournaments where people thought we were sight fishing, but we weren't. You know, there's all kinds of stuff going about it. So, like, that I would say for the most part, like, I was a lot stronger in the smallmouth game. Not that Mike wasn't good, because he'd catch them, but, like, I would figure a lot of that out.
Yep.
And then, like, his deal was, once it got into the summer, into the offshore stuff, that was where he just, like, I mean, I was good at it too. We kind of got good together, but that was where he shined. Like, I know, like, when people would see him out there graphing, they're just like, oh, you know, this is bad.
Yeah,
This is bad.
yeah.
Or they'd see us start some weird-ass place where no one's ever fished. And it's like, oh, no, this ain't good.
Right.
Because that's
right.
where he would find the stuff. You know, his deal was, he's like, a lot of the stuff, he'd be like, okay, if there's a lot of people fishing this area, I don't even want to go over there. And he'd find, like, something off the beaten path, and that's where it would happen. So it was a lot of fun in those years fishing with him. We won a lot of tournaments and just had a lot of fun. And I was pretty bummed when he wanted to hang it up, but I did get him to fish one last year on Chautauqua chain. Yeah, had to beg him to do it, but yeah.
Dude, you remind me of Dane and I when you say some of that stuff, because, like, it's funny. That tournament him and I won on Mille Lacs, we had a offshore bed fishing deal, deeper, going. He figured it out. Like, I think he was the only guy to really figure it out, and, you know, I was able to duplicate it. And, like, Dane and I make a really good team that way. And other times, you know, I figure it out and he duplicates it. And finding a good tournament partner, though, to me is really hard to do. So
it's really difficult, and that was part of the reason why we did really well too. When you have someone that you're both on the water an equal amount of time, or, like, a lot of times, you know, I could go out in the week working at Shields. You know, I'd work weekends, and I'd have Monday and Tuesday off. So, but you'd be like, hey, I think this is going on. You have someone that's out there the same time frame to bounce those ideas off of each other. And I think a lot of the guys that fish tournaments up there, they don't necessarily have that. I mean, they might go practice for a day on the weekend, but they might go together in the same boat, where we never did that. The only time we were ever in the boat together was if it was tournament day. So 2 people on the water building a game plan.
Yeah.
You know, that's how that was a big part of our deal.
That's how we do it. And I guess, so do you think anyone else you're fishing against put in the time, as much time as you guys? And it seemed like you practiced a little more than them?
There's definitely people that put in the time. You know, like my buddy Lonnie, who, like, I kind of introduced him into the tournaments. He puts in a ton of time. Justin Rowe, good friend of mine. He doesn't as much anymore because
he's selling boats.
He's running 2 stores, so he's got a kid now. So he still does really well, but he can't go. He just isn't able to go for 2 days or 3 days to practice. So, but there were a handful of people that did. But once again, you know, going practicing for a lot of people is, you know, get there at 7 and leave at 3. Yeah. Like, you know, what I wouldn't even call a full day.
Nope.
Where,
you
know, I'm there. I'm the first one putting in the landing in the morning, and then by the time I take out, there's nobody there. So we worked hard at it and figured out a lot of things that people missed, and adjusted when other people started to move in on stuff. And that's how we kept it going, because some of that stuff was just, it's a one-shot deal. because people would see you, and then next thing you know, and we never catch them in practice. Very rarely would we hook one in practice.
You
on
shake
that
'em?
stuff. Yeah, once we know, like on Shatek chain now, we don't even fish any of the good stuff in practice. Like very rarely.
Why would you?
Because like we're gonna fish it anyway, and that's what like it always. People be like, I gotta go check my fish, and then they'll be like, well, I caught 4 in a row, and then I finally caught a good one. It's like, to me, like if I pull up on a spot and I get 4 bites and I don't set the hook on them, like I'm going to feel a heck of a lot better pulling up there in the tournament, casting in there, knowing like these things haven't been hooked. And yeah, I might catch a couple small ones, but I might catch a big one. The first one you hook might be a giant one 2 days before the tournament, and you ain't catching that now.
A lot of times the big one bites first.
A lot of times. So we learned that very early. I mean, we would catch some fish on a new lake, or if it's a lake where, we've found an area where we might hook one or something, but we were really careful about that.
Takes a lot of prudence, I think, to do that, because we're a bunch of crackheads, right?
Yeah, everybody likes to catch them. I love to catch them, but everybody knows those guys who are like, oh, we had 20 pounds yesterday.
Fuck.
The day before we had 18.
Half the field.
Yeah, and then they come in and they're like, they got 6 pounds. Like, what happened? I don't know what happened. We caught him good yesterday. So, well, yeah, it's because you caught him good yesterday.
I can just hear Steve Menz on the phone right now. Well, what are you hooking him for?
Yeah.
What are you hooking him for? But, okay, so practice, though. I mean, you can put in a lot of time and have it burn you, right? Because to me, the thing I've learned about practice is more practice benefits me if I plan for change and plan for adjustments and plan for those types of things. And to me, not hooking fish also kind of helps with that, because you're not training your memory to a 4-pounder here, a 4-pounder there. You're training your memory to just try to be productive on the water and get bit.
Get bites.
Yep.
Yeah, get bites.
Which I never really thought of it from that standpoint before, because the classic example is a guy spending 5 days on the water and he's got it figured out. He had the best practice ever, and then he goes in the tournament and he absolutely bombs it, right? Mm-hmm. To me, that's because that guy trained his memory way too heavily throughout those 5 days, that he blinded himself on fishing the moment or fishing the day or being more open-minded on tournament day. Yet that guy who practices a day didn't find the good shit that this guy found in 5 days. So there's like a happy medium, and it's kind of like everybody's maybe a little different with it, but you figured something out with that. So I wanted to kind of dig into that a little bit.
That's a big thing, because you have like the guys who like go out and they find their 3 spots, right?
Yep.
And then they're like, yeah, I just didn't catch them today on those 3 spots. So that's where like, I keep going back to these lakes, but this is where like how I approach the Elite Series now, how I approach the Opens, how any tournament I go into, I go back to these lakes and how we were so successful. Big Shatek chain, red cedar, upper long, Chippewa flowage. Those lakes, like, yeah, I'd go out and I'd have us practice, right? Whatever. I have an idea what I want to do. But where we really started to be consistently better than most people was because we knew how to adjust. Yeah. Like we wouldn't be like, oh, well, we didn't get them on these 3 spots, so we're screwed.
Well, we're going to catch them on docks today, or we're not going to catch them, right?
Yep. Or they don't think about the things like, I had a recent situation in that redfish tournament I fished where like you don't, like you catch, say you go into a bay, right? And you catch them really good on a chatterbait, right? And the wind was blowing into the bay. And then you go there in the tournament, it's calm. And you might catch a few, but it's not. Get the Senko. Yeah, get whatever. They do that, or it's just like, okay, it's the springtime. The wind was blowing in there. The water's going to be warmer. That's why they were in there biting. Like a lot of people just go in there and they'll fish. They'll throw their chatterbait. Yeah, they'll pick up a Senko. They'll catch some fish. Well, we would just go to the other side of the pocket where the wind was blowing and catch the dog shit out of them. A lot of people don't think like that. Or whether it's pre-spawn where it's like, well, yeah, I caught him here, on a jerkbait. But now it's it's the water's 5 degrees warmer, and now they're up on the top of the flat, and you got to throw, a hair jig or your spike with something. They want to try to catch the fish that they found where they found them.
You can't win a tournament in a history book. Right?
You can't in most situations. But what happened over all these years on those lakes aren't that big.
Right.
I mean, they're big by the standards of them up there, but they're like 2,000 acres.
They're not that
3,000
big.
acres. Some are 4,000 acres. So like we would have like all these scenarios backed up in our brain where the same thing happened. And this goes back to me remembering stuff. Be like, well, yeah, okay, they're not here. Well, last year when the next place we caught them was right here. And then, okay, we go there and they're not there. Okay, they got to be somewhere in between here. And then we would find them and catch them. Like a lot of people don't at the local level. I'm not talking about the Noah Schultzes of the world or these people that to me have used advanced thinking skills and like just understanding of fish movement and all the conditions to bring you to the conclusion of where they should be. It doesn't always work, but you can build on that, and eventually if you do that, you're going to find them. And it might be 200 yards from where you caught them in practice.
Right.
So that's how I've been successful all over the country.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I think one of my favorite things about this podcast, I've never taken a waypoint from anybody on this podcast, nor would I. And I love that. And I think, for those local guys who are just wondering, and I think what's more important than where you're fishing, why you're fishing, what you're fishing is how you're thinking about the sport and your process. And to me, like all the best anglers I've ever talked to is a sort of thinking that's very simple, yet everybody else isn't thinking of it, so it's not that simple.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it's one of the hardest questions to answer is when people are like, "Well, why did you go do that?" Or, like I've had like Mike question me, McAvoy, like, "Well, why do you want to go do that?" Like, I don't know. Let's go try it, and well,
there's a gut to it. Yeah,
there's a gut feeling, and then there's just something in your mind that's just puts all the pieces together. And I think that's something that, I mean, I talk to a lot of people about bass fishing, and like you can tell when you're talking to someone that gets what I'm trying to say because you can't explain it.
Yep.
It's just an understanding and just knowing a lot of things that have happened in the past or happening right now and putting it all together to lead you in the right direction.
Well, this gut thing, right? It's a mysterious thing, this gut decision making, and whether you have it or not. And I guess, not saying I have it fully figured out, but we've talked about this on previous podcasts where I compare it to like a pro hockey player having like, he doesn't think about, cycling it back on the boards or passing it to this defenseman. He doesn't have time. This guy's about to lay him out. Mm-hmm. He just does it. It's muscle memory. It's there, and that to me is kind of like the gut with fishing. It's you've developed such a, your body is built for it because you've done it so long, so many in so many different facets that it trains your muscles to know this guy's coming at me, I'm cycling it back to this guy, and I don't even have to think about it. It's this burning thing that you have to like go do. It's that magical thing that makes Randy Howell turn around and pull up to a bridge and win the Classic, whatever.
Yeah.
You can't explain that. Just like a hockey player can't explain this crazy move he did before he scored. He didn't think about that.
Yeah, or like the hockey. I played hockey my whole life.
Yeah.
And it's like, one of the things you learn right away is like, you want to be where the puck's going to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, anticipate the play.
Put yourself where the puck's going to be at, and that takes advanced levels of playing the game. Because when you start, you're just worried about the puck.
You're chasing
the puck, and like I just want to always be. But no, once you get, and I never played at a super high level, but I mean I was pretty good back in the day, and I've have some friends that are very good. Mm-hmm. And when you mesh, kind of like when you got your line mates, and you just can tell by looking at them, like, okay, I need to be on the freaking far post, and then boom, the puck's there as soon as you think it, and you score. Like it's very similar to that.
Anticipating
when you're
everything.
anticipating it, and you just all those experiences that you've had playing hockey your whole life build into that particular moment, and you don't think about. I mean, subliminally, maybe you think about it, but like you don't like calculate everything. You just go to where you think you need to be.
Yeah.
And tournament fishing is a lot like that, and that's why you see a lot of the guys, like Patrick Walters or these guys that are just always catch them. Like they might not have caught anything in practice, but they just go by their instincts. And
Patrick Walters didn't catch much in practice based on what I've heard about how he practices. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, he's all over the place. He
already drives for days.
Yeah,
he'll only practice and fish one day.
Yeah, he told me he likes to see every inch of the lake. He said, I don't have to make a cast on any of it, but I like to see every inch of the lake.
Crazy.
Yeah, but he does it, and that's his system, and he fishes a lot. Yep. Obviously, he's got high level skills, but I think he fishes a lot on his instincts and just his experiences of fishing.
You put Eric Clapton on stage, and he's in the middle of a song, and he goes into this crazy solo, right? Do you think he thinks about where his fingers go?
No.
Do you think he even knows what the fuck he's going to play you? No. But he's going to play you something great because he's trained that, and great fishermen to me are the same way.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard to explain. I get asked that a lot, and I couldn't write it down on a pad of paper to hand to someone to say this is what you need to do to be successful. Like I couldn't do it.
Well, everybody's path is different. Mm-hmm. Whether it's Bob Downey's path and your path to the Elite Series were very different. If you look at your past before that, or what have you. But getting back to like how you stop people from seeing where you're fishing, was it not setting the hook? Was that kind of the main thing?
No, I mean
you just wouldn't check the shit was good.
That's what we would do that, or what a lot of people didn't understand on these lakes, because once again they're not that big of lakes. Yeah, they're very good fishing lakes, right? But it's not like there's 10 billion bass in there, right? So what would happen? We've seen it happen all the time. We would find this deal, right? And then all of a sudden you'd be out practicing and you'd see a guy pull up and you're like, oh crap, he found it. And of course he'd catch a couple. Well, then he'd leave and then another guy would pull up and then he'd catch a couple. And then another guy'd pull up. And it just would happen all the time. So you'd be like, all right, that's going to be burned. Those fish are going to move. And then all of a sudden we'd find where they moved. And then we would sit and watch all these JJs out on the spot rotating through it all day. And we would be 200 yards away catching them. And it happened all the time on Chautauqua Chain, Big Chautauqua, all these lakes where we would just
any lake with pressure. I think
any lake with pressure, and just any lake that a lot of the stuff we fish. It's not like there's a group of 20 of them there. There'd be like 5. You know what I mean? That's all you need when they're big. And if you got 20 of those spots, eventually you're going to get 5 of them.
Yeah.
And so we just would figure out where the fish moved to. And a lot of the old stuff that people used to fish, that was good, but then they got burned out, and we had figured out where they went after that, which unknowingly, we just stumbled onto this and figured it all out. Well, then once everybody burgled all that other stuff, we went back to the old stuff because nobody fished it anymore, and we won all these tournaments on the old stuff.
It's like when there's road work and everybody takes this route, and then that route gets trafficy. So then one guy takes this route, it's fast, and then next thing you know, the traffic route is the fast route.
That's exactly how it was. Like we would be like, all right, well, no one's fishing the rock anymore, so go over there, beat everybody.
So did you notice they would like move to a different pattern, different type of structure, or just onto like nothing?
Both.
Yeah.
It'd just be. I mean, very rarely would we go into it. That's the other thing that I think set us apart, is very rarely would we go into a tournament and be like, this is what we're doing. Like we would have like all these tournaments we won on Chautauqua Chain. Like everybody thinks we won all of them offshore on all these secret spots, which we did weigh a lot of fish, but we caught a damn lot of them on the bank too.
Cool.
Like we would be like, okay, we got this stuff, but we got to go flip these 6 stretches of bank, or we got to go frog this patch of pads. We got to go fish these 3 docks.
Yep.
Like we would have all this different stuff where most people don't have that. They have well, I caught him on a swim jig in practice, so that's what we're doing. That's what they do. And sometimes it works out, and sometimes we win tournaments doing the one rod deal, but very rarely do we go out and win doing just one thing. I mean, it might be the bulk of it, but we'll catch a big one skipping a willow tree.
Sure. Sure.
Like that's just, I learned that really early on. Like you can't rely on one deal. You got to have some other stuff to do.
I agree with that. And, yeah, the one deal thing has won me some tournaments, but it's burned me. But like Downey and I were talking about fishing style a little bit, and I forget where we were going, so sorry to take us on a further tangent if that's what I'm doing. But like, he's not a 2-rod like he was saying. Caleb Kupal's very 2-rod, very commit, live or die. And Bob's not quite that, but he said he's not quite you, and you're kind of like a Brian Thrift style. And I'm a guy who has a lot of rods on my deck, and I wish they did what Pat Schlapper's rods did, but someday maybe. But I guess that, to me, I have a hard time with 2-rod Todd because I can't stand not figuring out the day.
Well, and here's the thing that I always explain to people, because like I said before, like, I like to have different options, right? And say I'm flipping a bank, right? And say in practice I had 1 bite on a frog because I happened to have it out and there was 1 cast I needed to make with a frog. And I made the cast and boom, I caught a big one. Well, most people would be like, well, shit, I only got 1 bite in practice on that. I'm not even going to take it out. And I'm going to take it out if I see a spot to do it. And then you get to that spot and you're fishing in a tournament, right? And you're like, God, I should skip my frog up under there. And you're like, I don't want to get it out.
Yep.
I don't want to get it out. And then all of a sudden, you do that 10 times throughout the day, and maybe on one of those casts, that's a 4-pounder. That's the one that makes a difference. 99% of the people are not going to go into their rod locker and take out a bait to make 1 cast. And I always will, not like every bait I've ever caught a fish on I have out, but like I'll have most tournaments, I'll have at least a dozen rods out.
Hell yeah,
most
me
of the time.
Too.
And
yeah,
10
to 12.
And that, like Bob,
or 8 to 12.
Caleb will literally have 12 rods in the boat. Like he opens the rod locker, I'm like, what? Where's the rest of your rods? Like, that's it. Got 2 spinning rods, and my. That's what
crazy.
He's got.
He's won 2 Elite Series events.
It works for him.
Holy shit!
It works for him.
Yeah,
he's great.
That could be the way to go. Like if not many people have won 2 Elite Series events.
Well, he's won 1.
Oh,
and he's won an Open.
Oh yeah, that's what
he's
it
got
was.
second on an
That's
Elite.
what it was. Yeah, my bad.
But Bob's in between. Like Bob, he's got his boat and he brings extra ones, But then I'll open my rod locker and be like, "Holy, how do you get them all in there?" I'm like, well, I cut it out so I can fit more, and I got more on the other side, and then I got 30 more in the camper. And he's like, "Really?" And that's just how I roll, because I have, like, when I have a rod and reel, it's for a thing. This is what it's for. This is what I got it for. Yeah, I can use it for other things, but this is what it's for.
Yep.
So, yeah, we're kind of like, Bob's in between. Caleb's on the end of spinnerbait, jig. Obviously smallmouth fishing, he'll throw a drop shot and a Ned rig and other jerk bait and stuff. But, and then I bring the arsenal out.
I'm more that way, and I guess for me, it's easy for me to be closed-minded. So like having that, like I call it a spectrum. I have kind of a spectrum of what, like this is like the limits of what I'm kind of like comfortable probably doing today.
Yeah. Like,
and I agree with you on there's so many tournaments where there's a morning deal where you get 1 bite, big bite doing that, or, you're scrambling and you need to figure it out. To me, even fishing an offshore spot, there's 12 different ways to fish it.
Yeah.
12. There's probably 30, but there's 12 ways I would want to fish it. I could fish it. They were doing this yesterday, but if there's anything I know about bass fishing, there's a good chance they're maybe not doing that the same day.
They'll change. Or like a jig. People like, I'm throwing a jig today, and they'll have a 3/8 ounce jig out. Where like me, I'm going to have a 1/2 ounce, a 3/8 ounce, and then I'm going to have my secret little one. Like I'm gonna have 3 jigs out if I'm fishing a jig, at least maybe 4, because like I know like
We're gonna keep that little one a secret.
the little one's a secret.
Yeah.
Well, it's not. You can buy it. Kirigi Sakana. It's one of the most badass jigs out there.
I'm keeping my little jigs.
Yeah, that's fine. Mine is in production now, and it's good. Won a lot on that too. But a lot of people just flip down the bank with their 3/8, where I'll flip down with 3/8 and a half, then I'll come back with the little Eddie, and I'll catch 3 more. A lot of people don't do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Like-
to me, that's a big deal. Maximizing your area. To me, I agree. I feel like I can maximize any area I fish if I have enough things to do.
Yeah, and then it just in your mind, you'll fish. A lot of times, I'll fish with more confidence, knowing like, yeah, I fished this bank with a 1/2 ounce jig, but now I'm throwing a 1/4 ounce little Eddie.
You're not fishing behind yourself the same way you
this
were.
is gonna be. I'm gonna get.
It's almost like a different patch slapper
yes,
going down
a little
the bank.
different, a little different. Yeah. So I think a lot like that too. Like I'm the guy who, before a tournament, like I rig up. Tons of rods. Like it takes me forever to do it.
Me too. I
because
hate it.
I want to have. It sucks at times, and I've had to
tying them leaders. Fucked it.
Yeah, I've had to get better at it because we don't have an off day anymore, so
Right.
I can't lounge around. Like I got to get it done. So I've gotten better at it, but I'll have every rod out and have them all rigged, and I might not take a cast with 10 of them, but like I want them ready. So if that situation comes up, I want to be able to capitalize on the opportunity that is in front of me.
Well, if you're in the moment and this is your moment and it's about to go down here and you just caught one and you can't get another bite on that lure and your wheels are turning and you can look down and you can see maybe options you wouldn't have even thought of if they were in the locker or not tied up, or it allows for me like the experimentation of learning each day. I think it makes it faster for me.
Way quicker. Yeah, because once again, if you're out fishing offshore and you're planning on throwing a football jig and you only take out a football jig and you leave a Carolina rig and a crankbait and a drop shot and a shaky head, you leave all that stuff in the rod locker. Maybe if it's a really good spot, you'll take one of them out. But if it's sitting there, you're going to be like, I'll take a cast of Carolina rig.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to throw my shaky head up there.
Right.
But you don't. There's a lot smaller chance you take the time to take a rod out, and because you got your rods on the rod locker, and it's a pain in the ass to move them out of the way and open it, which sounds stupid. It sounds stupid.
It doesn't.
But it goes through my mind every time I got to go in there. I'm like, God dang, I got to move these rods. They're going to get all tangled up. I don't know if I want to, but if it's sitting there, I'm grabbing it. You know what I mean?
Dude, I learned the hard way with this year I wish I would have had 2 different weights on a bait, but I didn't because I had a bunch of other stuff rigged up, and it turns out like that little different weight would have made a world of difference. And it's like, man, I wish I had 13 on the deck today.
There's times where I've had them piled up on top of each other.
Do you think that ever inhibits us though? Like, I think there's 2 sides to that though.
There's a balance, and I've gotten better at it. There's definitely a balance, but I still would rather have. I would rather be on the side of having more options out than being limited. That's just how I've always done it.
Yep.
Even in tournaments where I know I'm going to throw, whatever, a jig 99% of the time, I'm still going to take out other stuff because I just don't know. So.
Well, it doesn't mean you have to use all 13,
no,
right?
There's a lot of times I won't touch 5 of the rods I take out. And then maybe the next day I don't take them out.
Right.
That tells me like, okay, I can leave that in there.
Yeah.
So
you and Noah are very similar, I think, in terms of like how when you practice, you seem to make sure you have a lot of different options. And that's something I've gotten better at, I think, but I don't know if my results have shown with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because I'm a pretty offshore guy, and I've got 13 rods for that, right? But like checking, shallow stuff and mixing like stuff on the bank end is something that I never used to be great at doing, and I've been trying to do better at it, and it just hasn't.
It's hard. It's hard when I love fishing offshore too, and there's nothing I'd rather do than go drag a football jig on a rock. I love it. Love doing it.
Greatest bite
I haven't
in the
hardly
world.
got to do it at all just because of a lot of the places we've went to, but I've just learned that you gotta be versatile, and you gotta know what you're doing. You can't just, there's a lot of intricacies with a lot of different techniques that you have to fish them for a good amount of time to learn them, to be more confident when you do it and just be more efficient, get more bites, have the right rod and reel line so your landing percentage is better. Like there's a lot of that goes into every technique, and it's hard when you really like to do something. It's hard to take your focus off of that and go and do other things.
That's my problem is when they're doing what I want them to do, it's hard for me. That's when I get blind is when they're doing what I want them to do, which is weird.
Yeah.
When they're doing what I want them to do, that's when I should be, but not every day, not all day, not every hour.
No,
Yeah.
and like on the Elite Series, I haven't got to fish the way I really like to fish in hardly any tournaments. And like the first year, that kind of, I didn't have like a horrible year, but it wasn't great because I tried to fish the way I wanted to fish.
Right.
I tried to go out and idle all day, every day and find this secret stuff where in reality, I just needed to be throwing a chatterbait down the bank, and so then the next year I did do it like on fork. I got to fish. I got to go drag and do some stuff I like to do. But it seems like now it's like I don't get to do that much anymore because of the places we fish, the times of year we go there, and I just know like I can't do that. Maybe I'll spend a little time doing it. Like I've weighed a lot of fish offshore, but not like I haven't got to do it like whole tournament and like have a really good, with the exception of some smallmouth places, obviously. But for largemouth, I haven't got to go just drag a football jig on rock and gravel all day. I haven't got to do it.
Well, we can out here anytime.
Well, I can do it back home.
I know.
I can do it back home. But like, on all these lakes we go to, it's just, there are times, I guess, but not that. I haven't had one where I'm like, I caught all my fish on a football jig or a Carolina rig, which is, I love doing that.
Me too.
So,
but okay, so do you know how many tournaments you've won in the state of Wisconsin or your total winnings? Have you ever done the math on that? I was curious.
Total winnings I have. I used to know pretty well. I used to keep track of it every year.
Well, when was that? And we can maybe fill in the blanks.
Well, I used to just know at the end of the year how much I won. There was a lot of years I won between 20 and 35 grand back home.
Sure. Which is good back home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's my cut, not not split.
Yeah.
That's mine, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But a lot of that included, skeeter, real money, a lot of extra incentives that we used to be able to get.
Do you think you won $1 million? I feel like
I don't know. That's a lot. I don't know.
Yeah, it is a lot.
No, because you look at what I've won on the Elite Series, it's only like 250 grand, which that doesn't account for any of the nation stuff that I've won. So in reality, that's probably like 300, but there's no way in hell I've won 700 grand.
Well, number of tournaments you've taken first place in.
That's a lot.
Is it 100?
It's more than that.
Yeah.
I have
that's sort of,
it is. It's a lot. I between the Up North Bass Circuit, Wisconsin Team Circuit, the CWBA, the UMBCS, some of these other ones that have been up there, my club, my Chippewa Valley Bass Tech Club, which is 30 boats. I don't know how many I've won out of that. A lot. It's a lot. I've got in my basement
over 200.
No, I don't think it's
150.
Probably in that range. Would be my guess. I don't know. Don't quote me on that.
I don't know it
because I'm a humble person, and I don't know.
You are a humble person, and I asked you. That's why you answered.
Yeah.
You didn't come in here saying I'm Pat Schlapper and I won 150.
No, I know. In my basement, I've got a 40-foot wall, and that's top to bottom of plaques and trophies. And then my windowsill down there has probably got 40 of them on it, and then I've got multiple totes that are full of them, and then I've got some just laying around. All the ones from this year are just laying in a pile on the table.
I haven't hung any of mine. I've got one box full, and I'm pretty proud of that box. But 150 tournament wins.
Don't quote me on that.
100 to 175 tournament wins, give or take 25 to 30.
I would say
a guesstimated.
I'd say between 75 and 150. I don't know though. I hate even saying that. I'm not a
We're not going to
bragger.
hold him to the number, and he's not a bragger, but my God. So, I know when Noah Schultz started just whooping everybody. I know there's people who like stop letting them fish.
Yeah, we got
Maybe-
blackballed a little bit.
You did. I was going to ask you, like, when you have that much success, you start to hear, cheater being thrown around. Like, I was curious how intense that got for you in terms of that, and I guess how people took that, because there's a lot of salty people to be salty out there that don't really have a justification for it, and then there is some sketchy shit that goes on. So
There is, and I remember back in the up north bass circuit, that's the little one I started fishing right when we were kids. And we would show up in the little smoker craft phaser, and these guys would have all their new bass boats, and they were, like, these guys are really good.
Yeah.
And then it was really cool because we were, there's these kids, and we would get big bass. And I can remember all the first trophies we got and specific bass we caught, and you'd be like, that's kind of cool. Well, then all of a sudden, we started winning. Me and my dad started winning most of the tournaments. And then all of a sudden, one of the older guys started saying that I was cheating, and I was in high school, I think, and I was so mad. Like, I'm a fairly confrontational person. Like, I'm not scared. Like, if I heard you said something, like, I'm gonna go say something to you.
As a high schooler?
Oh yeah, I got
that.
in a lot of trouble in high school for that.
Yeah.
In college and just in life in general. But anyhow, like, I remember it. Like, my dad took it really personally. Like,
Totally.
he got pissed.
Yeah.
And then the guy who said it, his kid fished with him, who's old, his kid was 40 something.
Yep.
And he came up and he's like, hey, I just want to let you know, I didn't say any of that stuff. I know how hard you work, and my dad's out of line, and blah, 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 blah. So it kind of got back to him. That was where it first started when I was a kid.
Sure.
And then, there'd be people that would, I don't know if that, like, in the team circuit or UMBCS, any of that, I don't think anybody would say we would cheat. They would all just be like, not all of them, a handful of them. Everybody's really cool for the most part, but there's a handful that would be like, well, yeah, he just fishes all week and he gets to practice all week, which I didn't. I mean, I had like 28 days of vacation and I took them all in the summer, but what people didn't see was I was working Saturdays and Sundays. I was working till 9 or 10 o'clock at night. I was putting in 50 hours a week. I just got to go fishing when you guys were working during the week. Like, I was working the whole time, and, like, that's not my fault. It's not my fault. You have a bunch of kids. You have other priorities. Like, this is what we want to do. I want to fish. And if I'm going to go fish these tournaments, and then they'd be like, oh, they take it way too seriously. Well, if I'm going to spend $500 between the entry fee and gas, like, well, why
wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't I want to win?
Right.
Or then there's people be like, well, they don't stay and drink all night afterwards and buy everybody drinks. Like, well, no, because I'm going fishing the next day, and I'm not going to piss it all away. And I squirreled away a ton of that money. That was what helped me make the leap to quit my job to go fish. It's like, I saved a lot of that money and invested a lot of that money. Yeah. So all of a sudden, when I decided to do it, I had a pretty healthy chunk sitting there. So, like, that was more the stuff that we would hear. Yep. It's just like, well, they get to practice for 5 days, which we would practice like 2 days, maybe 3, depending on how the weekend fell. Or they get to go whatever it was.
That had trickled over to Minnesota, the practice time thing. I had heard that.
Well, yeah, like the dude when
that
one of the famous Minnesotans, who's he thinks he's famous. That regional up on Vermilion that I won.
Oh yeah.
Like they changed the damn rule because that guy bitched so much.
Really?
Yes, because like that was the year that I had quit to go to try to qualify for the elites.
Yep.
And I had won the state tournament on the Chippewa a year before to qualify me for the regional on Vermilion for the nation. And I'd never been up there, so like my wife and I went up there for over the 4th for like 3 days and hung out, fished a little bit, drove around a lot, didn't catch shit. And then there's no cutoff for practice, right? So I had campsite, me and my buddy Lonnie, and we went up there the week before, which there's a whole pile of other, because there's 9-10 states, right? 10 people from each state.
Yep.
So there's a pile of other people up there all week. Well, this particular guy, he's got kids, and he whatever he does for work, and he had fished there a bunch, so he didn't get up there that week. Well, and a lot of other people he doesn't know too is like I practiced for like 4 days, or 3 days, and then I drove back to this Czech team to fish that 2-day tournament, and then came back up. So it's like I had practiced like 5 days, and Lonnie had practiced for 5 or 6 days. Well, I got first, Lonnie got third, and so that was just like, well, they were up here for a month, and we can't compete with that, and that's not fair. So now they changed the whole.
There's a Schlapper practice rule now?
This is the next year they changed it.
Okay.
And that's like the rumor is that this guy bitched enough that that it's changed now. Like there's a 30-day cutoff, and then there's like 3 official practice days. And me and Lonnie are just like laughing at each other like, are you kidding me? We've never fished up here. It's a giant lake. And like for me,
I think it's funny that you didn't practice that much.
I
And
mean,
everybody
no,
thought you did.
I did.
You know,
No,
well, like
I did.
You weren't there for a month.
I wasn't there for a month, but I was there. I was
5-6
at the
days
campground for a week.
5-6 days is par for the course for that deal, dude. That's not any more than anybody.
There was people coming from all over the, whatever, Iowa.
Yeah.
All the people in the region, whatever it was.
Yeah.
South Dakota, all the Dakota, all that.
It's the regional. Of course, you're
yeah,
going to try to put in 5-6 days.
And that's what I'm
It's
saying.
damn
It's
regional.
And like for me, it's like I'm not like this is what I'm doing. I'm fishing the Opens and I'm doing this. Like why wouldn't I try to win it? It's another avenue.
Totally.
Yeah, and then we go out and then
What's crazy is what ended up happening from all of that, I think.
Yeah, it is. That was where that helped me. That was a big stepping stone for me.
You double qualified, right?
Yeah, I double qualified. Yeah,
That's a gangster move. Double
pretty,
qualified.
Yeah, it was. It was after I won Pickwick, which is a cool story too. I had fished. There was 4 Opens that year. That was the COVID year, so it was like real strung out. Like I fished the first one on Kissimmee Chain in January, and did decent, like 23rd, pretty decent. And then all of a sudden it was like COVID hit, right? And they didn't have another tournament. I think the second one was Hartwell in like October or something. It was before. There was 3 of them before I had won. That was what it was, because I had fished Cherokee, Hartwell, and Kissimmee, and I was in like 3rd in points. Well, then I win on Pickwick in end of November or whenever it was.
Smallies.
And it was like, well, then all of a sudden I got to get prepared for the Elite Series. So I'm like, all right, I'm not going to fish the last one on Lay Lake because I'm in. I don't care. I need to like get stuff figured out for next year because, we started in January or February,
right,
and the last tournament was in like end of December or something ridiculous on Lay Lake. So I called Chris Bowes. I'm like, hey, I'm not going to fish Lay Lake. Just send me my money back. So we'll only send you back $1,000. We're keeping the other 800. And I'm like, well, screw that. I'm going to go fish. I went down there and did good in that one and ended up getting 3rd in points. So, double qualified, and it's been rolling since then, I guess.
Dude, probably it's just amazing to see there's a lot of people who have that success at the local level, but you seem to, like, when you qualified, you took it south to very different types of bodies of water.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say, Wisconsin, there's like those flowages kind of a reservoir-like. Have you found that have you found a lot of similarities in like breaking down those, like a Chippewa flowage, Turtle Flambeau flowage versus like a reservoir down south?
It's similar. The big thing is like up where I'm from, or like in this area, there's a lot of diversity. A lot of people don't realize that. They think when people are from up north, all they know how to do is fish smallmouth.
Yeah.
But like I could go fish milfoil. I could go fish, dark water. I can go fish algae bloom. I can go fish, the Mississippi River. I can
clean, deep, largemouth.
Yeah, I can do any. Yeah, weed line
largemouth.
fishing. I can go frog on the Mississippi. I can
Go
do
troll
all
for
this
walleyes.
stuff. Yeah, you go throw plug for muskies, all that crap. Like
Yeah.
I was very, and I had fished a lot of different ways. Like I've always kind of prided myself on being able to do a lot of different things.
Versatile. Yeah.
Being very versatile. Like I've always just tried to be like that.
Well, you came through kind of the age of more of a specialist kind of.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like the 90s, early 2000s, late 2000s even, it was kind of a specialist sport.
Yeah, you'd see the guys were, they'd shine sight fishing or out cranking or flipping. That's kind of the deal. And like I said, I love to fish offshore, but I grew up learning how to fish. I fished weed lines. That's what we did. We fished 12 to 15-foot grass lines.
Yep.
Clear lakes. That's what we did. So I had done so many different things, and like I had been to Texas a lot. Like I fished Falcon in the Golden Era a lot, and I fished Amistad some. Like I'd fished the team championship on Harris Chain the first year they had it. Did good in that.
I remember you guys like straightened hooks in that event.
Yeah,
it's weird how my memory.
Yeah.
Like, and you had.
We
I think
were
you had the
leading
right bites, and you
dude.
guys, you learned. You had Wisconsin hooks in Florida from the sound.
Well, and I knew better. Like I
mean,
we
you
were
learned the hard way.
we were leading the first day.
I remember that. Yeah.
And we had the very first one I hooked. Like I'd found this little secret spot that I didn't know was a secret spot because I like made one cast and caught a 4-pounder. I'm like, okay, this is different. It's like a little bit of grass, shell. I'm like, okay, we'll try to start there. And we were both like 180 something. Nobody went there. Pulled up and I was throwing a Carolina rig, brush hog, baby brush hog, and I had a 3/0 owner J hook, like the hook I used to throw all the time back here. And the first bite I get, I like set the hook and I'm like, wait, I got one. And he's like, are you snagging? Like, no, I got one. And it's just pulling. And it's just like I never turned it. And I'm like, oh shit, it came off and pulled it up and the hook was straight. And I'm like, all right, Wade, take them. We got to put 4/0s on. Like we got to put 4/0s on. And then we went a couple minutes later, like I missed one. All of a sudden, boom, he hooks a good one. He's like, I got him, good one. Starts reel, comes off. He didn't change his hook. He straightened it. And I'm like, wait, dude, just that kind of day. And then we switched hooks and like caught him good, but lost a couple and had 2 people see us catch them. And the next day we had problems with that. Like we didn't get like Wade's first one was like a 6.5 pounder, but then we basically had a boat on this side and a boat on this side, and we like had to cast basically at their boat. So
some days there's a way to kind of defend like the
could.
Spot, but in that thick shit, were you in the
no,
thick shit?
No, it wasn't thick at all. It was just real scattered grass on
when
shell.
you got 2 boats, you can't do it.
No, one we could do.
Yeah, one you can keep them off.
Yeah, and the guys from Idaho, they kind of stayed on they caught like a 7.5 pounder literally under our boat the first day.
Jesus.
They came and fished this other little point and kind of seen what was happening, and they kind of got a little closer. They didn't come up to the deal, but they were close enough to where we couldn't really work that way anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And then that day, there's a little canal that went back in, and these 2 JJs pulled up, and they saw us just freaking wrecking them. And they started working our work. And yeah, second day, they came. I'm like, I kept landing he'd cast, and I'd cast my swim bait over his line. And finally, he said something. I'm like, dude, we're freaking leading the tournament. You're 200 yards away, seeing us catch them yesterday, and now you're like pulling in on us.
Yeah.
Like we're leading this tournament. Like this is a big deal. Well, we want to get a check. Like, well,
dude,
we want to go to the we want to go to the classic.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was a father son or what, but the guy in the back boat's like, all right, we'll move away and give you some space.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where we had like 3 fish, and I had found some other fish. I'm like, dude, we gotta leave. We gotta go get a limit. And we left. And as we were pulling up back there, they were netting like a 6-pounder. It's like the only fish they caught. I'm like, oh my God. But either way, like Robertson was too dialed anyways. We weren't going to beat him.
Sure.
I mean, with what he had going. But
Right.
But so I had fished Florida. I had some experience around the country, but it was, I didn't find, I figured out how to fish a lot of them lakes. I figured out the strategy to do well in all of them. Like I wouldn't say I got on a winning pattern in any of them opens, but I figured out what I needed to figure out to do good, and make the leads. So,
I mean, I'm a big research guy. I've got like tricks that I use that seem to work really well on like any body of water that fluctuates before I go to it, and whatnot. And like I've talked to guys like Seth, and he doesn't do any pre-research for lakes.
I do very little. Like I like to watch YouTube videos.
Okay.
Like I'll go and just to get me in, like, I just like watching it. Not like I'm the guy, not like, I'm not like I got to be in whatever bay. Like I just like to watch it to see if there's something that sticks out in all of them.
Sure.
And like I will look at maps some, but I'm not like gonna read every article, and I think he's a researcher. I think he's really good at dissecting information. But I mean I like to do it a little, but I'm not like planning everything around it. I like to go have an idea. I pre-practice. A lot of these guys don't pre-practice.
Yep.
Like I just
Why is that? Just gives you more confidence?
Yeah, and I just like to go, like, say Seminole, for example. Like, dude, you can't just go drive around out there.
No.
It's all timber. A lot of it's timber. Like, you'll wreck your boat. So, like, I want to go spend 2 or 3 days knowing how to get around. And, like, okay, we're going to be there pre-spawn, spawn. Like, I want to be able to run all the way back to this pocket. I don't want to have to idle it for 2 hours.
Yeah, you only have 3 days before the tournament.
Really,
That's a really
3
good point.
days, maybe 2.5, if because you're gonna have to get off and get stuff done. So like, I like to know where the landing's at. I like to know where I can get gas, what places are open, what landings are shitholes that you want to stay away from them. Like, then I don't have to think about that. Like, I just got back from Grand Lake for the Classic, same deal. Like, did I learn anything that will translate into catching fish in the Classic? I mean, maybe. Hopefully, but I know what the water looks like in a lot of areas. I know where there's more rock. I know where the water's cleaner generally. I know what ramps to use.
Yep.
I like that. I don't want to go in. No, I'm not saying like I don't feel like I need to go out and pre-practice Lake Champlain. I mean, I'll fish it any time I can, but some of those lakes where I've been to 2 or 3 times now, I might not. But like, I'm going to Toledo Bend. I've never been there. Like, I want to learn how to drive around that.
Yep.
I want to figure some stuff out. And a lot of times, I'll mark brush piles or rock piles or whatever it is, and maybe it's not a huge part of my bag, but almost every tournament I've weighed 1 or 2 fish off of something I found the month before, where it's like you're running back like, oh, there's a brush pile over there, throw it, catch a good one.
Seminole, I think you would.
Yeah,
that was a scenario where that happened.
Seminole, I found.
I remember watching live and you talking about that area.
Yeah, I found
you went
it.
kind of Minnesota style on them that tournament, or
well,
Wisconsin
it was.
style.
I mean,
it was grass edge, right?
Well, it was grass and timber.
Yeah.
But it was just unique because a lot of that out there, a lot of the awesome hydrilla in there, but it was so matted. It'd be 10 foot of water and there'd just be just flats of it where like they were in there, I'm sure, but you couldn't
spread them out.
You couldn't fish it effectively. And like it was the last day of practice that I was there, and it was kind of a nasty week. It was cold. Like I didn't find much. I didn't catch much. And it was just a horrible day. Windy, rainy, cold. And I'm like, God, I'm not going to go. I'm just going to chill out, take a day off. And then I'm like, no, I'm going. I got to go. There's nobody else going to be out there. I'm just going to go. And I was just out on this big flat, just throwing a chatterbait around. And all of a sudden, live scope, I see this little pocket. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Because, it's like you wouldn't go fish it unless you stumbled upon it or like you knew you had found it previously. And I like throw my chatterbait over there and I just see the whole bottom just come up and I catch one and it's like a 2.5, 3 pounder. I'm like, okay, cool. Throw up there again and just they all come up and I'm like, all right. And I just kind of worked my way out of there. And that was it. I marked it. I'm like this, and then just where it was at and how it was in relation to where I figured they were going to be going in the spring. I'm like, this could be really good. If, I don't know if the grass grows heavy and I didn't know like what would happen in a month, but so the first day of practice, like, and it's in an area where, I mean, people would see you. Like I just kind of like looking around and nobody's around. So I just kind of put the trolling motor on high, went over there, made a cast, same deal. They all came up off the bottom. I caught like a 3 pounder and I'm like, okay. And I left. Didn't do any more investigation, which was good and bad. Bad because I didn't understand the area completely. That's what burned me the first day.
Sure.
But good because nobody saw me and I had it to myself. You know what I mean?
Yep.
There's a balance of that. So
Right.
yeah, that was one where it was like my whole tournament. I mean, I was catching them good in practice doing some other things, but that ended up being where I could have potentially won the tournament had I not, adjusted a little bit the first day. And I mean, I was in 75th after the first day because I brought in 12 pounds. And if, 30 feet away was the mother load, and I just didn't go. I didn't fish around. I just didn't do it because I didn't know what was over there, and I kind of panicked and left. So that's the other thing, pre-practicing. You just never know what you're going to find.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt. To me, like some people say they don't like to do it because they get all this stuff in their mind, but I just don't. Any time you spend on a body of water, I think you're always going to learn something. You're always going to take something out of it.
I agree.
Whether it's one spot or something you see that you remember that'll pay off. So
You can't plan for it to be the same
no.
when you get there. So the reason that makes a lot of sense, and I guess I'm not a big researcher besides Google Earth, and like I try to look at a lake and really understand where the dirty water is, where the clean water is, and everything I can about the lake before I go there, I guess. So that's, I guess, what I do, but everybody seems to be a little different with that. But Pat, the Houndstein's getting to me. I got to pee.
You go pee.
All right. There's a lure I fell in love with this year. It's called the Bellows Gill Swimmer. It's made by G-Crack.
I've never thrown one.
It's a gill swim bait. I got it. Here, I'll grab one.
I've heard a lot about that. I've never. Did you legit?
So a lot. Yeah, so like a lot of people throw the regular like gill, but like I've shown like 6 people that, and they're like, dude, I can't catch them on that. I don't know.
How
And
the
I'm
hell
like,
do you hook them on it?
dude, tape it to my hand. I don't lose many on it, and I catch everything. Eats it. 2-pounders, 4-pounders, 6-pounders.
What is that? Is that a 6-aught beast?
6-aught beast screw lock. Yep. And you combine it with like a decoy eye guard. Have you heard of that?
Mm-hmm.
On the lip to keep that knot clean, and it comes through eelgrass, everything.
It does look really good.
Dude,
If you could hook them on it.
I mean, you'll lose some, but I don't lose any more than I do on any other bait. That hook isn't isn't in any plastic. It's dull. That's a that's a rolled one.
You ain't gonna.
I ain't
So
gonna hook any on that one.
This is the gill.
gill
Don't
swimmer.
They make a shad too, right?
Yep. That's a gill swimmer. They make the original one was the gill and the shad, I think. And I don't even know why we're talking about this, but it's like you could tell people exactly what the hell you're doing, and it doesn't mean that they're going to have the same confidence to do it.
Yeah.
And that would be an example.
Yeah,
of
and that's
that.
like that tube we were talking about.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that tube is special, but I mean, you could catch them on a green pumpkin, regular whatever tube too.
Right,
You know what I
right,
mean? If
right.
that's what you're more comfortable with.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you dominated Wisconsin. Now you've made it to the Elite Series, I guess. And professional fishing's, it's a weird world nowadays. Lots of buzz, lots of news around it. But like your experience transitioning to pro and like what you thought that was going to be like versus what it's been like, I guess, was fishing and being in a Bassmaster Elite Series Pro. Now that you're there, is it way different than you like pictured it or thought it was going to be?
Some things are different, but it's all that I thought it would be and more. I mean, in most of it good. There's some stuff that is not good,
Sure.
or not what I thought it would be.
Sure.
But it's pretty cool to do it and to say that I've done it and to say that I might be able to do it for a long time if I keep doing all right. So there's just, when I came into it, I was older, 38, I think was or 37 or 38 my rookie year, where a lot of these kids, a lot of the people coming now are very, very young, right? So, and I wanted to do it when I was young.
Yeah.
Like I always told myself I want to try to do it by the time I was 30, and I was fairly close to fishing some of the opens, but I'm very glad I didn't because I was in no financial shape to do it, and the skills that I thought I had at that point I mean, they were good, but nothing like they were when I went to do it when I was 37.
Sure.
So a lot of the big misconception is, we talked briefly beforehand about, the Jacob Fouts video that came out, where he kind of laid it all out there on the sponsorship side of how he's hasn't gotten much for sponsors, and how that's kind of an illusion that, people think you get there and you magically get all this money to do it right, because it is freaking expensive.
With the JDM tackle craze in full force, there's been a lot of hype around the new tackle shop, Waypoint Angler Supply, and their unique selection of intergalactic fishing equipment. But don't forget about your everyday bassin needs, whether it's hooks, weights, fishing line, tackle storage, reels, rods, craw tubes, beavers, jigs, spinnerbaits, jackhammers, frogs. You never have to pay full price again. There's not that many places that will give you 20% off a new Shimano reel or a new Vocelka rod. On a big ticket item like that, 20% savings is a good chunk of change. You can then take that 20% and put some gas in your boat, or you can take that 20% you saved and put it into a Roth IRA. Warren Buffett that shit, which in a year's time, you just paid for that new rod and reel. It's simple math and science. As a Bastronaut in the Bass Galaxy, you can save 20% on all the stuff you use every day at Waypoint Angler Supply. Do you ice fish? Do you do the ice Dougie? Do you do the ice fishing? Well, you can knock 20% off all your ice season goodies at Waypoint Angler Supply too. Who's got you covered no matter the season? So stop into their store on Lake Minnetonka or visit their website, waypointanglersupply.com. That's waypointanglersupply.com. Use the code GALAXY20 to save 20% on all your everyday tackle needs, ladies and gentlemen. World champion barbecue born in the pits of Memphis, Tennessee, family owned and located just north here in Minnesota. Just north of Memphis, barbecue, ladies and gentlemen. One look at their trophy room and one taste of their barbecue is all it takes to know it's the very best. But the J&O story runs much deeper than that, and bringing people together, whether it's friends, family, or fishing buddies, with some mouth-watering smoked barbecue, that's what they're all about, which is about as American as it gets. If you smoke meat, if you like to grill meat, if you like to cook meat, you need to try the J&O Memphis Dry Rub Seasoning, which will enhance your barbecue game instantaneously. Also, voted world's best sauce in 2022. You can bring this right to your kitchen table. They've got 3 flavors, and each one is better than anything you'll find in the supermarket. Let's take things up a notch this summer. You can order their dry rub and world-famous barbecue sauce right on their website. Visit jnomemphis.com. That's jnomemphis.com. Or visit their Facebook page for food truck locations and schedule. Barbecue.
I'm Johnny B with Just North of Memphis Barbecue, and I approve this message.
Yeah. Like, you're talking $45,000 in entry fees. I mean, I spend between $75 and $80 a year to do it.
That's crazy.
So you put that in perspective. Let's say you make every top 50 cut, which is unlikely. But let's say you make every top 50 cut. Well, that's $90,000. Okay, you get one top 10. So you won, like me this year, I won $102,000, right?
Yeah.
And I finished 19th in the AOY standings, which is decent, pretty good.
It is good.
And I had a 4th place, and I had, I think I missed 3 cuts, and I had a 4th place finish, which that paid $25,000 or $30,000. So at the end of the day, $30,000 I put in my pocket if you don't have sponsors, but and then you got your normal bills.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
it's like
and
I tell this to anybody. Like, anybody with any sort of financial sense, if you looked at a business plan that the average guy would put together to go fish the Elite Series, not a single person with any sort of financial sense would say, yeah, that's a good idea.
Bob Downey and I were talking
Yeah.
about it. Yeah, there's not a lot of accountants that
Dude,
fish
and
the
Bob,
Elite Series.
Bob is a freaking numbers guy. Dude, he'll build
He's a smart cat.
He'll
You can
build an
tell.
Excel spreadsheet for anything.
Really?
I join.
That's cool.
It's funny.
I am not that guy.
No, I couldn't set up anything on Excel, but he's very, very sharp with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I am too, as far as because of what I did for a living before I went to fish. Like I have a very good grasp of the business side of it and just that kind of stuff. So, it's hard to look at that and make sense of it. And I think that's like a myth or like a dream that is sold to a lot of these young kids. Now, I'm not talking about some of these guys coming into the elites where they have unlimited daddy mommy money,
Plenty of that.
where they just don't,
Plenty of
20
that.
years old and I'm not taking anything against them because, dude, if I had that opportunity when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, and you can go fish,
Totally.
you don't have to worry about anything, then that'd be great. But the
I
majority,
expect them to be that good, though.
yeah, they are. I mean, they're
better
good.
be.
They're good.
You better
be. And there's rumors surrounding some of that stuff, but we'll see when they freaking got there. Some of the guys got there.
You better be good.
Yeah. So we'll see when you get to the elites. I mean, I'm sure that they'll probably do good, but the average person, and I would put myself in the average person category, when they're that young, just can't. It's hard to be able to do it, right?
Dude, yeah.
To do it. Like most 20s, even at 25, I mean, most people, don't have 30 to 50 grand sitting there to go fish the opens.
I'm 30, and I'm like far from that, dude.
Yeah.
Times is rough. Like, you got groceries like at an all-time high.
Yeah.
Gas ain't at an all-time low. And mortgages, I mean, dude.
Yeah. Adult things.
Adult things plus 21st century technology needs, like, your phone, like internet, like insurance on blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, that's all stuff that, that's what put it on hold for me when I was younger is like,
Sure.
I was like, I'm going to do it. I want to do it really bad. And like, I seen people like, I don't want this to sound weird, but I've been like a closet Seth Fighter fan forever.
Who hasn't? Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you remember the old classic bass days where like you could go on and look at all the tournament results.
Yep.
And like, it was always him and like me, we were always on it. And I'm like, God, that guy seems cool. And I remember, weighing in, he fished a UMBCS on the river, and I was helping bump, and I weighed his fish, and I like messaged him afterwards. He won't remember this, and I'm like, hey, that was a good bag, that was cool. And he's like, thanks, man, like that was it,
Seth's response.
But anyhow, I seen him making it, and like Douglas and Matt Steffen, and I'm like, this is when I was like probably 30 is when them guys started. Roughly around there is when they started getting into it. So I was like kind of motivated. Well, then all of a sudden at that point in my life, I finally like had what I would call pretty good amount of financial freedom.
Sure.
Where I was making good money. I had a really bright future with Shields as far as retirement. And I was like, it was really nice to like, not that I was rich, but like I didn't have to really worry about like paying my bills, and like if I wanted to go on a trip, I could do it.
Didn't have that weekly weight that most Americans
I
feel.
did, and I did for a lot of like.
Most people
did,
do. Most people do.
But I got to be that age, and I'm like, I loved working at Shields, and like, and their retirement is just, it's so crazy good that I was starting to see the light of that. I'm like, oh dang, if I can just stick it out till I'm 45, like I'll be good, and that's what I was doing. I kind of wouldn't say I gave up on the dream, but it just like I didn't think I was going to do it. I just didn't. And then all of a sudden the switch flipped when I got to 37 years old, and I was just like, I quit caring about money. I care. I say that all the time. Like, I don't care about money. I do, because it takes a lot of money to do it, and I've worked really hard to get to the point where I don't worry about money that much. Not that I'm rich, but I've just made some good decisions and have been smart and have cut back on some things that some people haven't to get in that position. So
what kind of things? Like, because that's something that, I mean, I think everybody can kind of tighten up if they need to, right? Like, what did that sacrifice look like,
so,
for you?
So one of the things that I did, and I should have done it earlier. So, and I don't want to get too far into it, but like Shields.
This is not financial advice.
This is not financial advice, but well, actually, it is smart financial advice. Anybody listening?
It is.
So when once you get to working at Shields for long enough, you can basically start buying stock of the company if you're approved as a key associate.
Yep.
Right. And the returns are very good on that.
Sure.
So for several years, a lot of the money that I had won, I would buy that stock, right?
Yep.
And when I quit, or basically I went to part-time, well, once you're not full-time, you have to take that out. And I took that out, and all of a sudden, what I had put in turned into quite a bit more than that. So now I'm sitting there with a pretty good chunk, plus other stuff that I had done and saved and was smart about. I didn't have that burden that some of these kids go to the Opens and they don't know how they're going to get to the next tournament. Like, I didn't have any financial stress, I guess is what I'm getting at.
There's like an outdoor Wall Street that you capitalized on.
Kind of an outdoor Wall Street, yes. But it's
yeah.
unique. Like,
Very unique.
I am not like
well,
the
there's
stock.
no job shortage at Shields after this podcast.
Well,
I'll tell you that much.
that's something I think it's known, but it's not like
that's cool though.
It's they treat their employees, their long-term employee, well, all their employees. It's a great place to work, period. But if you put your time in there, you will be rewarded on the back end.
Yeah,
you will really be rewarded on the back end.
It's a great company in general.
It's great, and it's like it's retail. Everybody's like, oh, you work retail? You went to college for 5 years and paid $30,000 for college, and you're selling rubber worms. They don't realize that Shields is a heck of a lot different than pretty much any other company in that space.
They are, yeah.
How they treat their employees, how they do business. Mm-hmm. It's a whole different deal. And a lot of my success goes back to my time working there and the stuff that I learned by working in the fishing shop and dealing with companies and dealing with people, higher up in the company and watching the store grow. Like, I learned a lot about, and they let me fish whenever the hell I wanted. They never said, no, you can't go do that, ever. Now, I might have had to work some extra days on the back end, but I didn't care. So that was where, like, when I left, when I was 37, it was like I had a plan in my mind. Like, okay, I can survive for plenty of long time with what I have with no more income, and I'm going to give it a shot. Like, I'm going to 100% commit to it. And that year, like, if I could get back to that level of like my mental state and just how I fished that year, it would be awesome. I have not been able to recoup what I had going on that year. I don't know if it was because of like it had built up for so long that I wanted to do it, and I was finally doing it, and I didn't have to worry about anything else besides fishing. And I mean, I like won a lot of local stuff. I won, a lot of stuff that year. Yeah. And qualified for the elites in the first year of ever doing any Opens or anything. Yeah.
Not many people can say that.
Yep, they can't. And a lot of times these kids that go do it, it comes back to, even like, Fouts and his thing with Mercer I just listened to. He's like, you go to a tournament with $900 in your account, and if you don't cash a check, you don't know how you're going to get home. Like, I never had to worry about that.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have that in the back of my mind, which I think is a barrier that's really hard to overcome for people that go and do it. And some of them are just younger, and they're naive to the fact that they think at the end of the rainbow, if they somehow make it through the gauntlet of the Opens, that magically $100,000 in sponsorships is going to appear.
Well, that's like the Brandon Polinick Bassmaster poster story, right? Mm-hmm. Is sleep in the back of your truck like Brandon Polinick and, get through those gauntlets and you'll be Brandon Polinick.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's necessarily the truth,
it can
because you could be Jacob Fouts.
Yep, you could be. I mean, it's definitely possible. I mean, I did it. Bob did it. Caleb did it. Like a lot of people in our area, and then you're starting to see more. Kyle Norsetter, he did it.
Yep.
So it's possible, but I think, if somebody really wants to do it, a kid from my club tried to do it last year. A young kid, good fisherman, not a dominant fisherman though. Good, but not dominant. That's the first thing I always tell people. It's like, if you're going to go try to do it, you better be freaking dominant in your home lakes. You better, maybe you don't win everyone, but you better be doing really, really, really well all the time.
Yep.
Because if you think you're going to go jump around and jump in these other ones and do good without doing good at home, it's probably not going to happen.
That's why I haven't done it. But then you listen to a story like Bob Downey, and I wouldn't say he was dominant before.
But he was consistent.
Yeah.
He was consistent fisherman,
right.
and his is different because I think he fished the Opens that year because they were going to the river, and he's like, maybe I can win the river and go to the Classic. And maybe he had a little glimmer of thought about making the elites.
It wasn't a thought.
But he was still working full time, and I'm gonna do it, and we'll see what happens, and maybe it'll be fun.
He was gonna skip the second one.
Yeah.
If he didn't do good.
Yeah.
It was literally that.
Yeah. So for me, it was the opposite. And a lot of people. And once again, I'm thinking my personal position where I had worked for Shields for 20 years, and I was fine, I could take the risk. But a lot of people, they get scared, that if they try to leave what they're doing, and that they can't get another job, or they just get really scared about that. And it's and I was for a long time, but it's
natural,
dude, it's dude, no, if you know how to work hard, if you show up on time, you have good work ethic, and you're reliable, you could go get a damn good job in a lot of places.
Dude, I sell advertising for a living, and we do a lot of recruitment ads. You talk to any HR gal in this state of Minnesota right now, there's 3 job openings for every 1 person to fill them.
Yeah,
right now.
Yeah.
There's a job shortage crisis right now, and that's where I don't understand why we're going into a recession. Because nothing makes sense right now from that standpoint. But I agree with you. There's jobs everywhere.
So I think if you get in that in your mind, if you prepare yourself, set yourself up to be able to go and fish the Opens, or try to get to the Bass Pro Tour, whatever you want to get to, if you prepare yourself, maybe it takes you 5 years to get to a financial standpoint where all right, I don't have to worry about that. That's out of my mind. I'm just going to concentrate on fishing. And that's where I think a big part of why I did it the first year was because I didn't have to worry about anything else. I didn't have kids. My wife was like, go do it. Hopefully, she was all for it. And I didn't have a bunch of sponsors. I mean, I had some,
right,
but maybe 10, 15 grand, which not I think enough to pay my entries, and maybe a little more, not a lot. But I didn't care about that. I just go fishing, and I made it. And then I won the nation championship. Same deal.
You were destined to make it, Pat. And I guess that's not you saying it, but that's me from Minnesota looking from the outside. It was there's people that are dominant and have it. Seth was one of those people. Uh-huh. You, to me, are one of those people. Noah Schultz would be another one of those people to me. And I guess you were dominant. Yeah. And you proven that you had the skill set, to do that. And I think for me, I don't feel dominant enough to go do something stupid financially, right? I don't feel dominant enough. Now, if I'm in a better financial decision, or if I'm in a better financial situation, maybe I could do a Bob Downey scenario. But to me, that's just, it's really hard to bet on yourself. But you're kind of a unique scenario where I feel like it would be much easier to bet on myself on the Opens if I had the dominance that you had. You know what I mean?
And I think that
I
like
think most people don't have that, so most people struggle with that, right?
But like you just saying that, like I don't think I have it. But the thing is you could. Like if you like the kid who went to try to do it that I know this year, like I tried telling him, like, dude, you should wait a year or two. Like you need to learn how to fish offshore. Yeah, you're great at flipping and fishing shallow, and yeah, you've done all right out deep, but like you need to spend some time doing that. You need to learn you need to know what the hell you're doing in everything, but especially offshore if you're going to try to fish the open, especially
and now live scope.
Yes, and
which is where I'm like, that's been my mission now, right? Is live scope, because that's the weakness in my game.
Yeah, it's a pretty damn big deal. Damn big deal.
I didn't mean to interrupt you though.
But and I tried telling him, like, dude, how much money you got? Well, I don't have, not a lot. I'm like, Carl, you gotta give yourself like a 3-year plan. Work hard, cut all the bullshit of doing stuff you want to do but you don't need to do. Just concentrate on fishing, learning the holes in your game, figuring that out, and stack away as much money as you can, and you'll be a lot better off. And he didn't, and he's not fishing them next year.
Well, it's hard to save. It's hard to save money if you don't have money, right? When you're scraping by. But also, like, how the fuck do you fish the opens if you're scraping by?
That's
like,
what I'm
how
trying
do you
to
even,
say is it goes back to
can't do that.
It goes back to the lifestyle that you choose, and a lot of. I mean, you'd be amazed if you sat down and wrote down everything you spent money on, everything.
I probably should do that.
You would look at it and be like, "Holy balls! I spent $100 at Quick Trip last month." Or what on freaking Tornadoes or
I
whatever
bet it was
it is.
125.
Yeah, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then all that stuff pops out to you, and then you realize how much more money you could have if you were a little more disciplined. If you didn't go out to eat 3 days a week.
Right.
Or you didn't, if you drank,
5 less Houndsteins.
Yeah, or you drank freaking, Natty Light instead of Hanschwagen, where you could buy a 30-pack.
No, it's cost effective.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, either way, like there's stuff that you can sacrifice, and it's hard for people as Americans to do that. It's hard to be disciplined and make.
It tastes so good to not be disciplined.
It tastes good, and it's fun to go out and party and eat steaks every night and do that. But then all of a sudden, at the end of the day, when you add it all up over the course of the year, well, there's half your opens entry fees. And it's hard. But if you knowingly do it, then all of a sudden it doesn't become that hard. Because if you have a goal in your mind and you want to achieve that goal, it's not hard. It becomes motivating.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, I'll go home and eat a freaking sandwich instead of stopping and buying one. You know what I mean? It all of a sudden, boom, you're there. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. It's crazy. And then you end up working harder. And it becomes like a game where you see how much money you can save. I'm serious. That's how it works.
I think the whole world can appreciate that message, dude.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So I like the way you think about the game that way. And I think it's a hard game, but there's nothing in life that isn't hard. Fishing just seems to be a little bit tougher than other professional sports, and like it got like that Fouts conversation kind of like, so like the NHL, for example, like they've gone on strike. There's like a players union or association or something like that, right? That protects the players and allows them to have a voice, right? Is there anything like that, like for fishing pros?
No.
Do you feel like there should be? And that would maybe like help?
No, because here's the difference. Here's the deal. Tournament bass fishing is such a minor blip on the whole spectrum of fishing, right? Mm-hmm. It's just there's so few. You can't compare it to golf. You can't compare it to any, the NBA, the NHL, because their audience is so much bigger.
Sure,
right?
That makes sense.
Like what professional sport does the athlete pay to do it? Golf, maybe.
None of them, but there's a lot of professional sports out there that are niche, like fishing, that they probably don't have to pay. Bowling? You can't tell me at bowling that there's a huge...
Bigger than fishing, I bet.
Actually, you're right.
I guarantee it is.
Every town in the state of...
Everywhere.
Every town in... Yeah, bowling's a bad example.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, name me one. Badminton? I don't know.
yeah.
I
fuck
mean,
badminton,
whatever.
ping pong.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's
The difference is the cost to play ping pong is $15.
Well,
Couple of balls and a paddle.
yeah, that's true. But like fishing, tournament fishing is just it's such a small niche that I don't think we could ever get to that level of viewership and where there's money like the FLW did it for a while, where they had those giant team deals and all that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
That didn't last very long. And you know why it didn't last very long? Because some companies didn't get any return on investment.
But to me, like, every fisherman drinks a beer.
Yeah.
Or most of them,
Yeah.
right? So, to me, there is a place for non-endemics.
Oh, 100%. I have like 3 sponsors that are in the fishing world.
And I
Everything
think
else
they're-
is out of it.
Yeah, anybody who says there shouldn't be non-endemics, like I heard, I think it was Milliken and Livesey maybe on a podcast or something, and Milliken was talking about like how non-endemic sponsors are stupid and non-existent. And to me, I mean, you need some of that. And to me, there's a good financial opportunity for everybody with that, because we're a very loyal kind of like,
Yeah, and a
there's
lot
a
of the
culture to our
people
sport, you know?
that's like, say it's,
and
you know,
fishermen talk. So you get one fisherman who likes a beer, and word spreads.
Well,
This
and
tube's hot or whatever.
So like me, like I have Bauer Built Tires, one of mine that's has helped me out the whole they're one of the few that sponsor me when I fish the Opens.
Sure.
And it's like like everybody buys tires.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And anybody who watches fishing or fishes, they all need tires. It doesn't matter if they tournament fish or not.
Yep.
So like there's a lot of that stuff out there.
Right.
But a lot of those conversations are harder to get into if they don't have a personal connection with the sport. You know what I mean?
Sense. Yep.
And it's just
That's a good point.
it's hard to. And once again, after doing it now for a while and just seeing there's a lot of politics in this, a lot of politics.
Seems like it.
It's so there's so much of it, and the reason why, like say Bass, where you could have a guy like me sitting in the top 10 in points for most of the year and you don't hear a word about it.
Yeah.
But you hear a lot about the guy who's in 70th who they think should be in the top 10 but's not.
What's up with that?
That's because those are the people that have the most eyes on them. The people that have the big following, the people that get a lot of, investment, sponsorship dollars, the people that, and I'm not saying that they're doing anything wrong because they've earned that right. They've made their brand. They've built their brand to get that recognition from Bass or ML, whoever it is.
But they built that brand, so they don't necessarily need that recognition from Bass.
But that's
when
not.
they're in 70th
But
place.
that's not what Bass looks at. Bass looks at more people are interested why this guy is not in the top 10 and what happened, why he's not doing good, because they know about he's been there forever. They're more interested about why he's doing bad than why I'm doing good.
Well, Bass doesn't care much about me as a viewer because I want to see Pat Schlapper whooping up on some bass.
But you also have a personal connection with me. Like, yeah,
That's true.
I have.
That's
You know
true.
what I mean? Like,
Well, anybody
everybody
from the Midwest.
Anybody from the Midwest.
Yeah.
But it's not. I don't have. And like I said, the people that have that big following, they've earned it. They've worked their ass off.
Totally.
All those guys,
Yep.
they've worked their ass off.
We're not taking any-
I'm not taking any, but I'm just saying the facts of, like, you sit back and like, well, why the hell didn't they give me a camera on Mississippi River last year? I've got more history on that place. Granted, I had a shitty tournament, so maybe they just foreseen the future. Or like, why didn't I get a camera on Santee Cooper this year? Like, I caught, I had back-to-back big bass. I had great event there, and then no, we're gonna give it to a guy who's an 80th in points. It's just like stuff like that where me and Caleb and Bob talk about that all the time. Like, what is up with it? But it's because Bass knows that they're going to have more people tuning in to watch whoever it is, because
Not catch him versus somebody. Dude, I would much rather watch a guy I hadn't heard of catching him, doing this pattern, doing this deal, like figuring something out, than I would watching somebody with a big following not figure something out.
Yeah,
like that's what I don't understand.
But that's the gamble that they take on those first days of the tournament. Because
Sure,
there's
that-
bodies of
that
water
makes
where they
sense.
expect people to do good, and they might not do good.
that makes sense.
You know what I mean?
That-
But there's
from
just
their
times
standpoint.
where like so I had a conversation with a company that I don't have any relationship with at this point. I'm hoping I do in the future. But he gave me the best, because I've been just anybody in the industry, not anybody, but a few people in the industry that I really trust and have been around a long time. And this is on like the sponsorship side of it. Like I asked him, like, what the hell do I need to do to like grow, to make this a feasible career? I hate even calling it a career.
It's a career.
I hate,
You've earned that.
Yeah, whatever. Making
is.
this feasible.
Yep.
And I had that same conversation with him about, getting coverage, because that's huge for sponsors, for someone like me.
Absolutely.
And he gave me a really good piece of advice. He said, don't rely on Bass to build your brand. He's like, you have to build your brand, and then once you build your brand, then Bass will get behind you, which sounds weird because, and Bass does do a lot to build their brands if you do the right things.
Yep.
If you get on you have a day like I had on Seminole, yeah, damn right, they're going to blow that up. But, if you just kind of making cuts but not making top tens, and, being consistent but not like shining, then they're not going to
They're not
go
gonna
out
shine
of
you.
They're not gonna.
Yeah.
They're going to shine the people that have already
Done it in the past.
done it in the past.
Mhm.
So that when he told me that, I was like, God dang, I need to start changing some things. I need to figure out what the hell I need to do on YouTube. As much as I don't want to be a YouTuber, I don't want to be known as a YouTuber that fishes tournaments. I want to be a tournament fisherman.
Well, I'm just wondering if you looked at like your receipts from a year and you're like, man, I spent way too much money on these boat snack reviews.
No,
Because I haven't seen one in a while.
I haven't.
I liked those.
I know I need to get back to doing that too, because those do get really good
Okay.
feedback.
What's like, based on your studies, I'd like to go through your findings really quick on the boat snacks, because I think nobody's done a more comprehensive study and recorded it.
Okay, now are we talking about like what you want to optimize your performance on the water boat snacks, or just delicious boat snacks?
Two-part question.
Yeah.
First, what's the best performance enhancing, optimizing boat snack, and then what's like the guilty pleasure, most delicious
So
one?
the biggest thing I talk to Kyle Welcher whenever I can, right?
Absolutely.
And I love talking to him. He kind of keeps to himself, but every
Yep.
once in a while I'll get in a position where I
Hammer.
can talk to him.
Yeah.
And he doesn't eat like any sugar, bread, nothing all year,
Really?
because he said it just, it's a poison.
It
It
is.
is,
technically.
but I love sugar.
Who doesn't?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
we were raised on it.
he actually told me what did he say, the first remember the old food pyramid where it said you needed to eat like 15 servings of bread a day or whatever?
Yep.
Maybe you weren't even born then.
No. The food
But,
pyramid
yeah.
is absolute
Yeah.
propaganda.
Well, but he said whoever came up with that should be put in prison for life. I just started laughing.
he does not seem like a healthy guy if you
but-
look at him.
Well, he's fit though.
I believe
and
that.
But he's just like he doesn't eat bread.
I'd have
doesn't
thought he
eat
ate a
sugar.
coney dog on the
No,
way to the lake
No,
yesterday.
No. But anyhow, so like I've tried to really limit the sugar I have. Now, okay, we'll run down the day basically. So in the morning on the way to the lake, I'll usually have a granola bar, Kodiak cake, crunchy protein granola bar.
Yep.
There is carbs in it. There's like whatever, some carb, but I want some to get going. So I'll eat that on the way to the lake. And now we're talking tournament day or practice for an Elite Series tournament. And then I'll have jerky, and usually original, not teriyaki, because teriyaki has a lot more sugar. And then I'll have Honeycrisp apple. Gotta be Honeycrisp. Got a bag of them in the truck for deer camp. And then I'll usually have a cheddar cheese stick, and I'll have a Quest protein bar.
Yeah, I like those. Those are tasty.
The only one I want, though, is
Cookies
just
and cream.
no cookie dough.
That one's good too.
Cookie dough or s'mores, but typically
Ooh,
cookie
the
dough.
s'mores one is good too.
Yep, because those are like, to me, it's still sweet, but it fills me up.
Yep.
Like if I have that at noon, like that sustains me for the rest of the day.
I'm like buy 5 of those at the gas station kind of guy.
They're expensive.
Oh, they're brutal.
But they're good, and they're not that bad. They're not horrible for you. There's not a lot of net carbs.
They cure hunger.
They fill you up. And then I drink water, and at noon I have a kickstart. That's where it gets into like, there's 19 grams of sugar in a kickstart, so it's not like a soda, but there is sugar in there. But it's got 200 grams or 200 milligrams of caffeine, so that carries me through the rest of the day.
We're
That's the whole
approaching the
system.
last lap. It's time for the nitrous oxide.
Yeah,
That's absolutely.
Yep, yeah. I call
That
it,
makes sense.
I call it my medicine on like when I've been on camera, I'll be like, "Oh, I got to take my medicine. It's noon," and the guys would be like, did you forget your pills?" I'm like, "No, I need my kickstart," and then they'll start laughing. So
is that like a rich noon? It's like
it's noon. Typically.
So you're like a like a food rich. So
typically,
like snacks have times for you.
Yeah, there's I'll also have trail mix in there sometimes too, but very rarely do I get into that on a
You
tournament
sprinkle
day.
that in between your checkpoints?
I'll just have it here and there if I'm idling or something. Like honestly, throughout the whole tournament week and Elite Series, like I have a pretty strict diet.
Okay.
Like I've just so I don't have attacks on the water, and like I just try, like I eat a lot of, like I'll smoke chicken breasts before I go, freeze them, and put them in the camper freezer. So I'll have like grilled chicken breasts, vegetables, and rice, like almost every night.
Huh.
That's what, just because it's like I want to eliminate the chances of having an attack on the water, and just like I just and I don't want to. The only days when I'm on the road that I really go off the rails sometimes is when I'm traveling. Then I like to have gummy bears and shit like that. But I'm serious. Like when I go
I
on
love gummy shit.
like I go on the road and like I come back after a month and like I've lost 10 pounds, but then I come home and then it kind of I'm fat, I'm not skinny. So like I obviously
say fat either.
I obviously eat unhealthily, but like I've really found that tournament week, if I stick to a pretty strict diet, that it helps me a lot. So
sure.
And same with the boat snacks. Like I don't, like you won't find gummy bears in the boat in the tournament or pre-practice or practice. You won't find that in there.
Noted.
Yeah.
You might find some in mine.
I love them, and if they're there, I'll eat the whole bag.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And then
that's my problem.
Yeah,
too.
that's the problem.
Yep.
So, and I've felt like that's made me better.
You ever fuck with peanut butter pretzels?
I like a peanut butter pretzel.
I've grown quite fond of those.
They're good. They're, once again, you can't stop eating them though.
Yeah, but
they're good.
Peanut butter pretzels.
The peanut butter
what are they
filled
gonna
ones,
do
the
that's
little
bad?
nuggets.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're great.
Like,
They're excellent.
They're not going to do that bad of stuff to you, right?
No, that's fine. It's just you start getting into where I think a lot of your where you could get into trouble out on the midday where you got to go, you get an attack and you got to go to shore. Where that comes into play is the night before most of the time. Where
Like
you're
a poop attack?
Yeah, shit attack.
See, I don't get poop attacks.
Well, it can happen.
Well,
It
granted,
can happen.
You never know.
You don't
when
know
it's going to happen.
But when you kind of know your body and I want to minimize those chances,
For sure.
as much as I can.
Absolutely.
I just you don't fish right, and then you're fighting it, and then it's a bad deal.
Not a
Bad
big
deal.
Mexican food guy then.
Love Mexican food.
Me too.
Love it.
Yeah.
Eat
It doesn't
and
fuck me up like other people.
I'll usually have that, like if after the tournament, like say after day 3, or if I get caught or whatever, then sometimes I'll go, if there's a Mexican place, I'll go get it, or I'll go get like Chipotle or something. I'll go eat something, but very rarely do I eat at restaurants when I'm on the road. Very rarely, because once again, I'm paranoid about it.
Yeah.
You got some guy back there, and he's
sweating
just,
on the fucking...
yeah, I just don't.
It's amazing how trustworthy we are with food, right? Like, do you know how much Taco Bell I eat? I don't even want to know what the fuck I've ate.
It's bad.
Like,
it's bad.
I don't want to know what's been served to me.
It's
I don't want to see that kitchen.
no.
Nope.
Yeah.
Subway, you're making that shit in front of me? No, go in the kitchen. Go make that. Like, Jesus.
Yeah, that's a risk you take.
But, okay, so diet to me, like 4-day event is
Well, it's really, you got
3 days, 4
you
days.
got 3 days of practice,
Like-
and then now we have no off day. and then you go right into for sure 2 days, hopefully 3 days, really hopefully 4 days, and then usually now, then you're driving to another tournament and you're starting the next day.
Yeah.
Like back-to-back events.
Dude,
like
I'm dead after local events.
Yes.
And granted, I'm not doing your, noon, whatever, like, health ritual.
It's not. I'm not a
But-
healthy person, but I'm just
But
saying.
you have to be, like, it's another level of stamina that I don't think most people maybe understand because we don't have a lot of multi-day events in Minnesota, Wisconsin,
No.
a lot of places. And, dude, it's a marathon. It
Yeah,
wears
it
you
is.
out,
And,
especially
like,
the heat.
Bob's very healthy. Like
I can
he's
see that.
in shape. He's healthy.
He's a
it-
sweetheart. Golly,
yeah.
the guy's just a sweetie. Just a sweetheart.
I don't know if I'd say sweetheart.
I
but yeah, he's a
guarantee
good
if
dude.
Bob's married, I guarantee his wife's dad came up to Bob's parents at the wedding or whatever. And he's like, "You guys raised one hell of a fine young man."
Yeah, he is
He
married.
did not even need to ask for my
Yeah,
permission.
Yep.
He didn't ask. In fact, I've been begging him to marry her for years. Like, he's a sweetheart.
Yeah, and I knew I fished against him a little bit, like in the UMBCS, and I think on the river a little bit, but I didn't really know him. I think I talked to him a couple times maybe in passing, but now I know him fairly well, and yeah, he's funny. I like talking to him. He's a good dude. Good guy to have, to bounce ideas off.
Dude, yeah. Like, it's a good friend to have. It's a good person to be
Yep,
around.
for sure.
So we got through diet, but this these shakeups in the industry a little bit. Like, I'm just kind of looking from the outside, right? And there's this video pops up here, this video pops up there. These guys saying this guy's saying that. I'm not in it. I'm not living it. I guess. What's your like? You've got Jordan Lee's fishing the Elite Series now. You've got like
Bobby Lane went back to the Bass Pro Tour, which blew my mind.
Like there's all these like it's a weird cut. Like he drops out, so now he's in. Like he's like
Yeah, see, and that's the thing. Like with that Legends exemption thing, it's fine. And honestly, I'm excited to fish against Jordan Lee. I mean, he's gonna probably beat me a lot of the times, but
He's fucking good.
I want to be able to say, like, I was hoping KVD was coming back,
That'd be so cool.
just because I want to say that I beat him one time.
Totally.
Just if I beat him one time, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So, but here's where like people like me, or some of these guys that are fairly new at it. So when someone like that comes back, it's not like they start over, right? Like they get their career AOY average. So what happens is there's a cut line, right?
Yep.
And that's changed. But now it's like if you finish in the top 70 in the points for that season, you're automatically in. If you fall outside the top 70, then it goes to your career average. Who they're going to cut for the next 10 people or whatever. It's 10 people, because usually 10 people come in, depending on if other people retire and all that stuff. So there's a running list we get after every tournament. It shows where you are on that cut list, right? And like I have had, so I'm going into my 4th year. Like I've had 3 decent years. Like I've made 2 classics. And I got, I think, 55th my first. I think it finished 55th, 32nd, and 19th. Like my average is 30-something, right? Which is decent. But I'm like below halfway.
For how many years you fished?
Yeah.
I think it's really good.
But I'm like halfway down on the cut list. Like I think I'm at like 51 or 52. And now, like with Jordan Lee coming in, boom, automatically get bumped down a spot. Doesn't matter that he left to go to, greener pastures, and now when any of them guys come back, boom, you get bumped down, even though they left. So it's messed up. So that just makes it harder for the guys that are new and don't have that career average, and then they get it where after you've been there for 5 years, you can drop your worst year. So it just keeps boom, boom, building. Now, if you get to 5 years, once you get to 5 years, then that's where you can start to get on that side of it. So like Bob this year can drop one after this next season, and Caleb can drop one. And Caleb had a rough year, so he'll get to drop this 2023's number. So then he'll shoot way up the list. It shifts all the time. It's crazy how much it shifts.
That's weird.
It's really weird.
Is there a lot of people that don't like that? Or
No, and
could
that's
it be done better?
I don't
Like,
know. That's the thing is I wish that what I think would be right, and this is my personal opinion, and this is no shade at any of these guys. Like, I think if you left, quit, went somewhere else, and then you come back, you're starting over. Like, you're starting back at, it doesn't matter what you did. You left. You walked away because you were going to the best thing in the world. That'd be like quitting your job for 5 years and then, I want to come back now. And then you come back with the same amount of pay and vacation and benefits you had when you left. It doesn't make sense to me. So that's the only thing that in my opinion, they should change.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's what I think. But it works on the other side, too. So you got like Carl Jacobson, right? Where he got cut once or twice.
Yep.
So then when he requalifies, now he doesn't get rid of those bad years. Those go into his average and drop them down further. It's crazy. Yeah.
Okay.
And most people don't understand how that works.
Yeah. No, and Bob was the first guy to bring that up a month or whenever ago, and Jordan Lee should have never left. Like, looking back, like, that dude was. I mean, you look at KVD; he was primed to be the next poster boy, so to speak.
But that tells you like what. And I wasn't fishing at bass then, so but rumor has it there was a lot of stuff going on that made a lot of people unhappy. So you got to look at it from the business standpoint too. That's why Bobby Lane went back to the MLFs, because he went through the Opens and he didn't make it, barely missed it. And then they're cutting the field to 50 in 2025. Well, he's got a good enough AOY average where he's not probably going to get cut. And now he's over there fishing for $100,000 versus fishing for, so that was a business decision. So when all those guys left, that was a business decision. You think about if you were paying $45,000 a year just to fish, right? And then, if you win, you do good or whatever. Well, you got $45,000 you're taking off the top of that.
Yeah.
Well, now I tell you, okay, you can come over here. You're not going to pay any entry fees.
Right.
You're going to fish for more money.
Yeah.
You're going to have better payouts down the scale. And
everybody's going.
That's why they left. You know what I mean? You can't blame them. It's as much as you want it to be like.
But now don't they have entry fees now?
They do now.
Yeah,
right. That's where it started to go awry.
Right.
Is when the whole, front kind of came tumbling down. That's when you start to, like Swindle and Polnick pulled the pin first. You're like, this ain't going good.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like after them guys came back, there was, and this is me and Bob talked about this because once again I wasn't there when it happened, but supposedly there was a big uprising amongst the bass people that stayed. Like, what the hell, those guys left and now you just let them come back, which I think they had to pay a big amount of money or something, but they got back in. And so supposedly after that happened, they weren't doing that anymore. That's why you saw the Hackneys have to fish back in, Christie, who else? All those guys that Prosnick, all them guys had to go back to requalify. They didn't just get the golden ticket, they were calling it.
Right.
But Jordan Lee got in on the Legends exemption. Because
Which
he had won 2 classics, so, and I don't blame him at all. Like, dude, he's.
I get the Legends exemption a little bit because it's like, from the fan standpoint, they want him.
Well, and that's the thing is you think about
he won 2 back to back.
Yeah,
who's done that? Anyone?
Yeah, Hank Cherry did.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But
that's right.
I think Klund did too. But either way, Bass. I mean. They'd be stupid not to take him back from a business standpoint. And so now that's all you see on the website is Jordan Lee's coming back. And, Chase Anderson's just freaking, oh, baby, that's more money in his pocket. That's the owner of Bass or whatever. So, and it's good for me too, just because that's just more spotlight that's going to be on Bassmaster. So I don't hold anything against him. I mean, I just don't like the fact that, boom, I get just like that. I'm bumped down a rung. Doesn't matter how good I've been doing. I mean, I guess I could have gotten the top. If I've gotten the top 10 at AOY every year, then it didn't matter. It won't matter. But
the camera thing is kind of bothers me, hearing the camera thing, because it's like you just fished your way to that. Like, you earned that camera time, in my opinion. You know what I mean?
Well, and if you get how it
And
works,
that's your chance to elevate yourself a little bit in what you're doing.
Yeah.
And yes, you should be doing other things. It's not that you should be relying on that, but when your rod's doing the talking and earns you that, like, I feel like that's Bass's chance to say, look, who's this guy? Look at this guy. Like, and develop new fans in their anglers, right? Nobody wants to see the same guy doing this.
Well, a lot of people do if they get clicks. If they get people watch, if they whatever. But the way it works, like day one of the tournament, there's 6 cameras. And they'll always have like the AOI leader, and then they'll have like the winner of the past event, and then a lot of times the winner of, if they were there the previous year, and then the other ones are just kind of like,
we like this guy.
We like this guy. We think he might do good. He called and said he's catching them, which I never do that.
Maybe you need to do that.
Yeah, but I don't want it. I mean, I don't.
That's a jinx and a half
I
for
just
me.
don't. I don't know. So it's just if you earn that top 10 status. So I think even on day 2, I think it's 6. So you got to be in the top 6 to get a camera. As I think how it works. And then the last 2 days, I think it's top 10. If you're in the top 10, you get a camera. So, like, I've only had a handful of days in 3 years because I just didn't finish high enough. But like I said, there was just certain scenarios where you're like, God dang, man, you're like half expecting to be like getting a call and being like, hey, you're from around here. We're going to, we've looked up, you've got a lot of history on the Mississippi. Maybe we're going to put a camera out. Like me and Bob and Caleb were like, one of us is getting a camera.
I would think.
In that event.
How wouldn't you?
Yeah. And like I said, Santee Cooper. Caleb didn't get a camera this year. He freaking had 103 pounds the year before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And only had 4 fish one day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like, he didn't. It just was weird. Like, so that's the side of it where it's a big deal for someone like me to get camera time. It's huge. Anytime I get on camera, I get all kinds of messages from sponsors. It's a huge
do a great
deal.
job, yeah.
Huge deal. And I try to, like, be informative and just be myself.
I thought it was super good when I think it's Santee Cooper this year, right? Or was
Seminole
it Seminole
this year was the only I had just one. I only had one day on camera all year.
Crazy.
That was it. Day 4, yeah. So
not even day 3?
I wasn't in the top 10 on day 3.
Oh.
I was in like 15th or 18th or something.
Got it.
Yep.
Huh.
So, but that's part of the sport, and that's the bottom line. Is it's a business for them, so I can't blame them. I'm not like whining about it. It's just the fact that like I need to do more things if I want to get more exposure. Bottom line, whether that's fishing better. Obviously, I want to fish better, but doing stuff like this is, I never turn down any of this stuff because
you're welcome anytime, dude.
Okay, well,
yeah,
if it wasn't 3 hours away, but
well, I can come see you sometime.
There you go.
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Once we get the Galaxy Traveling Podcast trailer,
you got that coming
someday.
But no, that's just
in my dreams.
That's just part.
You need a Hohenstein, or you good?
No, I'm good. I mean, that's just part of the business, and learning that.
Yeah,
it's what you got to do.
You have any plans with like the YouTube stuff, or what, like ideas with that?
It's
a tough game.
It is. I tried. Like, I think it would have been my second year. I would do like these real in-depth recaps where I like had lots of fish catches, and like I would kind of break down what I was doing, and they were too long.
Maybe.
First off, but I would spend tons of time doing them, and I'd get like 300 views. So I'm like, oh dang it! So then I started doing this thing where it's just like tackle talk, where every tournament I would do like a 5-minute video on like what I did, what I caught them on, rods, reels, lines, bait. And like I didn't get any traction on that. So then like last year, I'm just like, you know what? I'm not going to invest a bunch of my time into it until I know what the hell I'm doing. Until I figure out the angle that, and I don't want to be the click. I don't want to be the Randy Blockett's and these people that put up like, man takes wiener out on bank of river. You know what I mean? To get you to click on it. I don't want to do that. And then you watch it, and you don't even see a guy take his wiener out on the bank. Like, it's all a lie.
It's no dicks.
You know what I mean?
Like, what the fuck?
Well, that's an example. That just came to my mind. But, like,
Oh,
that's
hilarious.
what these guys do. It's like, locals will never let me fish here again. So you're like, oh, I don't want to do that.
It sounds like that's like the only way
That's
to do it.
clickbait, and and maybe I have to like be something like that. I don't want. This is what I don't want. Like I've worked really hard in my life to like get a reputation as someone that has a lot of integrity and someone that like is going to do the right thing and isn't going to like sell out. And I don't want to compromise that to the people that I've earned that perception from.
I don't think you need to, though. Like, you don't need to change the content of your video to change the title to make it more clickable. You know what I mean? You can make the same video and then just go over to Lee Livesey's Airbnb, grab a Busch Light and say, hey, Lee, type me a YouTube title for this video.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's what I got to figure out.
To me, that's not, I guess, like Sam Sobey to me is a good friend of mine, and he's a YouTube star, right? Yeah. He's just like you, where he's got a very good character, very good integrity to him, but he's figured out the YouTube thing, and it's not that he's clickbaiting. It's he's making titles to videos that people click on.
Yeah.
That's all it is. He's not changing who he is.
Yeah, that's what I got to figure.
Not to argue it.
That's what I got to figure out.
Us too. We're figuring out that whole thing too, and it's like certain. Yeah, we're learning with that too. So I'm not saying I got it figured out. I guess to me, I just kind of like Jacob Fouts was thinking about to me, that's a similar way he was thinking with that. Right? He thought like that he needed to do things a certain way, and I guess to me, like. He's maybe found his niche with his brand, right?
He's got an audience now.
And he doesn't need to change a lick about who he is. And to me, I think there's a similar opportunity for you and what you do. And maybe it doesn't need to be the same controversialness or what have you, but there's always a creative way to fucking do something, just like catching a bass.
That's funny how you brought that, because like when I went out to check my phone, the guy from the company that I said gave me that advice, he texted me and he said, by the way, do not make a video like Jacob Fouts did. That's right. I literally just looked at it and I'm like, yeah, I won't do that. But I mean, not that he was wrong with what he said, but
he was in a little different position, I would say.
Yeah, he was.
To make like backs against the wall a little bit, you know what I mean? And you're not and unless you're in that situation, I don't think it's a smart move.
Yeah, and I think that had just built up in his mind for a long time, and he just finally was like, screw it, I'm just going to say what I'm thinking.
It's kind of like YouTube's become his therapist a little bit, like in a way. Like, no, you bottle shit up and you need to let shit off your chest, and it seemed like it kind of like freed him a little bit.
For sure,
so
he's different
speak.
now. Just listening to him on Mercer, like he's changed, like just the way he's talking, and
almost
it'll be good.
Feels like he didn't feel like he belonged or was accepted, you know? Like, I think a lot of new Elite Series guys, I don't know, it's intimidating.
It is, and it's intimidating, too, if you go there and you don't have the financial, means to do it.
Yeah.
So when you don't have a plan of when you get there, how you're gonna pay for it and survive, then, he had to guide to make ends meet. Mm-hmm. He said he hated guiding, but that's what he had to do. He did it.
Yep.
So that's just the reality of it. It's expensive.
Right. Well, you and I were talking a little bit while we were eating pizza about like the evolution of technology with side imaging and stuff. And to me, based on, our conversations here, it really seems like you have embraced technology in general and you really used side imaging to your advantage when it was out, like I did. And it took a lot of time to learn, and you spent a lot of time getting to know it, just like I did, like endless amounts of time. And you got pretty intimate with it, right?
Oh, very intimate.
And it's funny, I've talked to other people about how I did that with side imaging, but I for whatever reason, there was like, I didn't do it. I didn't treat forward-facing sonar the same way. And now I'm starting to kind of treat it the same way as I did side imaging early on. And to me, that's when things really start to click.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's really immersing yourself in it. And I remember you were talking about how guys thought you were like sniping fish on side imaging, and people were bitching about that technology when it was out. And I guess I missed that a little bit because as I was getting into the sport, it was kind of coming up with it. But it's interesting because fast forward to now, and there's this big controversy about this new technology that's out. And did Bassmaster have the same conversation when side imaging came out?
No, well, I don't know about that, but like, the other thing too with me is like, I sold fishing electronics over the whole evolution of all. When I started working at Shields, there was like one color screen. It was like a Lowrance LMS 332C is what it was. A 5-inch screen. It was $650. And then they came out with a 334, which was revolutionary because it had a built-in antenna. And that was where it started, right? Everything else,
antenna, right?
GPS, and it had an internal GPS antenna.
Didn't need
like
the puck.
Big, I don't want the puck. So everything else was black and white. And then there was like the LCX 17, the 19, and then there was no side imaging, none of that, right? And like Humminbird wasn't even in the conversation. Like, I don't even think we had any of them on the display. It was Lowrance and Eagle, which used to be, owned by Lowrance.
Yep.
And that was pretty much it. Well, then all of a sudden, side imaging comes out, $797, right? And that was the next advancement. And everybody would see it, and I don't understand how that. I can't. What am I looking at? Then so you'd have to explain how it worked or whatever. And be like, I don't need that.
Fold the sheet of paper.
Yeah, or
shine
just
the flashlight.
Yeah, put the light. Yeah, that exactly. So it took a little while for that to get legs and take off. I saw it because I remember like I got one right away, right, and I started really figuring it out. And like I'd have it on the boat, and people would be like, "Oh, he's got that side imaging locator on the." I had it on back and front. Like I embraced it. I did a lot of damage with it up front too, and it became very controversial. People, that's cheating. Just like the old guys that come in looking at Vexilars and all, that's cheating. You shouldn't be able to use them. A freaking flasher, ice fishing every year. It's like the running joke. Like, this is my Vexilar, and he just moves his rod. I swear, it's happened with every advancement. So, side imaging was a big thing where it was controversial, and then it was 360. Well, now you can see all the way around the boat, and they're just seeing them swim by. Just like people that have never used the stuff are complaining about it and how it's bad. Same with forward-facing sonar. A lot of the people that complain about it, they've never used it. They don't understand how it works. They don't want to take the time to learn how it works. So there's always been controversy with new technologies that come out, but forward-facing sonar is definitely more so than any of them.
Yeah.
Because now you don't even hear anything about side imaging. It's
No.
just, and now like everything we have at Shields, 90% of it has side imaging or down imaging.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's color.
It's a standard.
Yeah, almost all but 2 or 3 units have GPS.
Right.
Like it's just stuff that everybody, these technologies that people all of a sudden kind of forgot about that are standard, because now the only way you can catch a fish is with forward-facing sonar. And once you put it on the boat, you're automatically going to catch every fish you see, and there's not going to be any fish left. And
Dude,
all
them
this
bastards
stuff.
are hard to catch on that thing.
That's the thing, is it takes a very, like, the guys that you shine with that technology, there's a reason that they are better than almost everybody
100%.
else. They understand it better. They know how to present the bait. They have more of them. Like, it's a technology that you have to take time to learn how to use.
What's the chatter with like the pros? Because I know a lot of you guys talk. I'm sure there's little cliques and people that talk more than others. But like, what's the chatter among Elite Series? Like, because I was hearing like statistics about like 30 to 40% of them not wanting it.
Yeah,
Is that is that? Are you
like who knows? Like we all got a phone call and asked our thoughts on it.
Yeah.
I mean, I did, so I'm assuming everybody else did. I know Bob did too. And then they basically said they're not going to change anything. And this is, I think, is really funny. They made this forward-facing sonar committee or whatever. You haven't read about it?
No.
So there's this committee that's going to
It's a committee?
track. I don't know what they're going to track. How are you going to track it? Like, ask everybody how many fish they caught that day, and if I don't know, but to see if it is a problem or something. It's crazy. Yeah, Bass has like a committee that's like going to track this or something. I don't know how. I don't know how they're going to get data. I don't know. It's just something that's what it's come to. So. Yeah, process that.
I'm still working on it.
Yeah. So there's obviously a bunch, or some of them that
I don't
don't want it, right?
Yep.
And then there's some of them that want it, balls out, do whatever you want. And then there's some of them that just want, limit it. Okay, you can have 2 transducers, or you can only have 3 screens, or this many inches of screens. There's all this stuff flying around that people want. So I don't know what's going to happen. All I know this year is it's like full on frickin' who can get the most badass setup built. And I can tell you, I can tell you right now, I'm going to be one of them. So
okay, you're getting up.
Oh yeah,
I like it.
I've always it took me like 1 year. I should have got on the live scope 1 year sooner when it came out. I got on the second year of the LVS. The year I fished the Opens was the first year I got it. Like I won, Vermilion because of it. I made it through the Opens because of it, because not many people had it.
Sure.
And a lot of people that had it, didn't know what the hell they were doing with it.
Yep.
Or they were sponsored by someone that didn't have the technology and they couldn't use it.
Yep.
So, I've embraced it since then, and yeah, this year we're gonna be pumping some voltage.
Walk me. What's
I'm gonna have 4 transducers
total
live scope transducers. Yeah.
How? What?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Be badass.
3 on the trolling motor, 1 on the back.
2 on the trolling motor, 2 on the back. Yeah. This is gonna be like, and this is something that's not talked about very much.
No.
Like this is something that hasn't got out to the general public.
No, I don't even know what this.
Like what Koyu and Taku and Kenta. Like I'm fairly good buddies with Kenta. What them guys are doing, it's crazy what they're doing. And once I get a hold of it around here, yeah, it might be a fun summer. Because I'm gonna have some stuff that people aren't gonna have.
Talking the saltwater deucers?
I'm not gonna do that yet.
Okay.
Them guys do.
Yeah. They can look like. Don't they have 2 screens for one deucer? Like 300 feet, you see 150 and 150?
Yeah, the one they can see 300, the saltwater one.
Fuck.
Yeah, which I'm not going to do that yet. I'm more concerned with the back of the boat is what I'm concerned with.
So walk me through this back of the boat scoping thing. Like what's...
Well, I don't want to get too far into it, but we're going to
be
covering some water, seeing some things. Yeah.
I'm so intrigued just because it's so...
There's a
different
company that I'm working with this year. I worked with them a little last year. A company, Beat Down Outdoors. They make really badass mounts. They got something coming out that is gonna blow people's minds. I'm so jacked to run them. And I don't know if it's public knowledge yet.
Are they those thrusters?
No, none of that.
Are you running
none of that bullshit.
Are you running the fucking?
No.
No. Okay.
No, I'm not concerned.
Downey was
with
telling
that.
me about those.
Yeah, I've seen people with them. Nobody in a high level event. I've seen people that have them, but yeah, it's basically troll motor props. So like you can back up, or put your poles down, stop you out deep, whatever. But no, that nothing to do with that.
Live sonar to the side though. How are you orientating that to make it like side imaging? We get to look in the past, right? And like live is super.
You gotta have it. You gotta. And obviously, I haven't done it yet. This is all talking to Kenta and talking to a few other people, and just it's gonna be like you got to be paying attention to it. It's gonna take a little while to.
It's like
there's one,
it's gone, but then it's gone.
You just got to be paying attention.
So it's forward mode, looking out the side while you're moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like a 3 mile an hour pan.
Yep.
With your trolling motor.
So basically, it's not going to be. It's not.
That's a fast pan, Pat. You miss a lot of. I feel like you miss a lot of shit.
But you have it set up with what I'll have it set up. No, I won't miss much.
Oh, it's looking backwards a little bit. No.
I'm just going to be looking at. All my information's going to be right here on one screen, so I'm not worried about that.
Whoa! Wait.
Yeah, we're getting in deep now, where people are really. And here's the thing: is like I'm not. I buy all my stuff. Yeah. So it's not like I hate it. Like I'm gonna be selling all this stuff for people, and like I still got to go spend all this money to get it. But yeah, dude, you
haven't named what
this.
You haven't named anything.
This next year is gonna be. This next year, when people see what some of us are gonna have, and when it gets out, what Koyu's doing and Taku, it's gonna come. I guarantee you, I'd put every penny I have on the fact that it's gonna completely change what happens on the back of the boat within 3 years. It's gonna completely change what happens back there, guaranteed. Once people see what this can do.
What?
Yeah, dude, look at those guys.
Oh, I know.
Koyu's never
I know.
caught a smallmouth until 2 years ago. Taku has top 10'd every smallmouth tournament he's ever fished. Every one of them.
So it's not bite powder?
Actually, I lied.
It's not the bite powder,
Actually, I
Pat?
lie.
It's not the bite powder?
He didn't on Champlain this year, but he's made every cut. But he's top 10.
I thought that was the bite powder,
well,
Pat.
there's a lot to be said for what they do with that stuff, too.
Yeah, my buddy is in Japan as we speak, and he FaceTimed me, and
Got you some bite powder?
I got like 5 different powders coming, like 4 different
Dude,
liquids. I'm like,
I mean,
just send me some weird smelling shit,
them-
dude, as much as you can.
Yeah, them guys are, like I said, knowing Kenta, like he camps too, right?
Yep.
And a lot of times we wind up by each other, and
Sure.
every chance I get, I'm over there.
Oh, that's freaking
And he's
Lulu.
the stuff he's got out, and he's super, like he shows me, tells me everything.
Really?
Dude, it's like,
That sounds wonderful.
I love talking to him.
Oh,
I
it's
always
be a
learn
dream come
something.
true.
Or just seeing him like do stuff is so awesome. But yeah, what them guys are doing it's next level shit. It's
Yeah.
mind blowing. Like I'm so mad. I knew about it before midway through this year. I knew about it, and I didn't freaking do it before we went north. And that's where it's really going to shine is smallmouth fisheries. Some largemouth fisheries, but it's mainly smallmouth fisheries.
How fast
We don't know.
does it work?
I don't
Like
know yet. I don't know yet.
And how does it work more efficiently than what's out there now?
It's just because it's like
How is it better?
because then I can just see things I can't see on side imaging or any other technology, unless I'm very fortunate.
You talking about the high flyers?
Anything like that, anything that's yeah.
Fish
It's gonna be
shit that no one's targeting.
It's gonna be make me way more efficient in what I do.
Do you mess with perspective much?
Oh yeah, some.
I think that is such a freaking sweet tool.
It's not talked about. There's certain scenarios. That's why I have the 2 on the front. I have
I
one in
figured.
forward, one in perspective all the time.
That's where the question was leading. Yeah.
In certain scenarios, like I have 362.
Yep.
Yep. There's certain scenarios where the perspective comes into play. I honestly, this last year, I don't think I used it hardly at all.
Sure.
But I like to have it for certain scenarios.
In what scenarios do you like the 360 over those 2 forward and perspective?
So perspective for me, once you get over about 12 foot of water,
Yep.
it's not as effective because of the way the beam works. I
Agreed.
feel like you miss stuff.
For sure.
Where the 360, like if I'm out fishing a rock bar with boulders, with isolated boulders on it, like I like to have that 360 to see the whole picture and displaying the waypoints on the 360, which a lot of people don't know about that either, where you can have it show right on the screen. On the 360 screen, I like having all that data up there, and then I could pick it apart with my live scope.
Sure.
Or if it's stumps or grass clumps, whatever it is, that's what I like that for. The perspective I like, if I'm fishing like a shallow grass flat or a shallow flat, because
shallow flats.
like 360 for me, like it's good in 5 foot of water and less, but not if there's a lot of certain scenarios. It's not as good. So that perspective I like because it works in super shallow water.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good detail once you get it dialed in. Like you stumps, you can see fish moving around, you can see grass clumps, and you can move it, and it's real time.
That's what I like about it.
If I'm up casting at clumps of grass with a chatterbait, I can once you know where to cast, where to position the whatever you're casting at on your screen,
mm-hmm.
you can hit. You could just way more efficient.
You don't need to wait for the needle to go back.
You don't have to
around.
wait for it to pan.
Mm-hmm. You can reposition your boat and move your boat around.
Yep, and
while you're doing it.
as you're positioned, you can just turn the motor and keep on it. Versus 360, it's all, it's all old information.
Yep.
So, but there's a place for it. I think 360 is a great tool. Like that's why I'll have it on every boat. I've had it on every boat since it's come out. And perspective is just certain scenario. It's situational. I don't use it as much, but certain things I use it for.
My big question with this arms race and all this gatness is like, is it going to come back around full circle? You know what I mean? Those fish, they seem to get a little tuned into your boat being there or the pinging. One of those two, right?
Yeah, I think there is. Yes, for sure. Especially after, like, if we're there and it's day 3, for sure. But the thing is, I mean, I think we're still just scratching the surface of what's out there. Yeah, you know what I mean?
As anglers, we develop special bonds with our equipment. There's something magical when you find that perfect jig rod and reel combo for a technique that elevates your confidence on the water. Whether it's a perfectly balanced, crisp, and sensitive jig rod that gives you the highest level of control over your bait, allows you to feel every grain of sand, every bite, and allows you to drive that hook clean, or a rod with the perfect action and taper that seems to keep your chatterbait, swim bait, or whatever it is in the back of the bass's head where it belongs no matter where you throw it, or a rod that allows you to effortlessly cast a lighter bait you used to cuss at on your old combo. These types of magical bonds are rare to find in a mass-produced sweatshop, which is why Vocelka Fishing and Customs came to existence, with the sole purpose of bringing you closer to your passion by enhancing the bond with you, your rod, and the bass. Confidence is everything in bass fishing, and there's no bigger boner buster than losing a big fish, not feeling like you can present your bait correctly. The list goes on and on. Mr. Vocelka is a full-blown artesian craftsman who can build you the perfect rod, no matter the size or action, custom, exactly the way you want it. He also has a wide variety to choose from right on his website, including fan favorites like the 8-foot hair jig rod, the drop shot rod, swim bait rod, the chatter chicken rod, the MH workhorse, and more. Even ice fishing. You do the whole frozen Swiss cheese thing, the ice fishing. Seen grumpy old men? Well, you can send that jiggle stick back to the antique store because Mr. Vocelka builds custom ice rods in all sizes and actions too. So head on over to his website, vocelkafishing.com. That's VOCELKA fishing.com. To enhance your confidence on the water, feel your passion, and catch more bass, baby. Winter is here, Christmas is coming, and the greatest gift a fisherman can ever receive in the off-season is new fishing stuff to tinker with over the winter months. In the therapy world, they call it a coping mechanism to treat withdrawals, but in the bass galaxy, we call it interdimensional fuel. But it's tough to trust someone else to pick out your fishing equipment, which is why you should tell your wife or girlfriend to get you a gift card to the greatest tackle shop north of the Mason-Dixon, Waypoint Angler Supply, for this upcoming holiday season. It's the gift that keeps on giving. One gift card from Waypoint Angler Supply can go pretty far. It can strengthen your marriage, assist with more time outdoors with your kids, strengthen your soul, and more. But you're probably asking at this point how a gift card from Waypoint Angler Supply could provide such benefits. Well, the answer is simple. Wife buys you a $100 gift card for $80 since she used the code GALAXY20. Instant dopamine hit for her saving money shopping. You then take that gift card and pick up a new rod, reel, or sneaky new bait that can win you a tournament next year. You win $2,000 in that tournament, you take $1,000 of that, you put it into the tournament entry fund, then take that other $1,000 and get your wife or girlfriend a trip or something that makes her happy. It's simple math and science, folks. If you're one of them ice fishermen, I should probably mention that Waypoint Angler Supply is fully stocked for ice season and has all the stuff you need for your next winter fishing adventure. Whether it's a gift card for Christmas or a new Vocelka custom ice rod, Waypoint Angler Supply is your Santa Claus this year. So stop into their store on Lake Minnetonka or visit their website, waypointanglersupply.com. That's waypointanglersupply.com. Don't you forget, use the code GALAXY20 to save 20% on your next tackle binge?
I do, but I don't.
There's we have a ways to go, is what you're saying.
There's still more to go, and I think the fish will. I think at some point get pressured enough to change a little bit, but if there's smallmouth chasing bait, that's how they live. They're not gonna not do that. To me, they're not gonna be like, well, I'm not eating these minnows anymore because every once in a while I eat a fake one. They're gonna be like, they might change a little bit, but they still gotta survive. They still gotta eat.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
But it's gonna evolve. But like I said, there's stuff that's not being talked about that I'm not gonna. There's some things that I've been doing that I've won tournaments on that is zero press, nothing talked about it. Like there's something I got in my back pocket that when the time is right on Elite Series, I just want it to line up one time, because and that's me. That's like, who knows what Koyu and Taku got in their back pocket. They're probably just like dicking around right now, throwing these little rubber crabs and stuff, and they're like, man, when it gets tough, I got this other thing I can throw. You know what I mean? So there's a lot to come out of this. We're scratching the surface.
I have so many questions that I know you won't answer right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of yeah.
And I won't press. So are you talking, when you're saying that little thing to line up, are we talking a technique, or are we talking?
It's a timing thing. Timing of a certain technique in a certain scenario of what fish are doing.
Well, yeah, I've got a bunch of those.
Yeah, but
right?
this is something pertaining with forward facing.
Got it.
Yeah, which I've won several tournaments doing it already, just not on a national level. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I remember, when I unlocked that, I called Wade, and I said, you ain't going to believe this shit. And I told it to him, and he's like, really? I said, yeah, you're going to see some shit tomorrow or whatever day it was. We went and blew everybody away. Yeah, it was awesome. And then we've won.
Is it like doing normal shit in a different place, or is it like looking for...
Yeah, it's normal stuff in different places, and just it's a very specialized scenario.
Yep,
totally. Very specialized. And it's like, I figured it out one day. Just one day I figured it out. And then I duplicated it all over the place. And then we went to another lake and duplicated it, and another lake and duplicated it. But it's such a small gap. It's such a small window when it can happen that it's not even come close to lining up on the elites yet.
Well, when it does, I look forward to hearing about it.
Yeah, when it does, it's gonna... If it ever lines up and it doesn't come out before then, yeah, it could be scary. It could be scary.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got I figured another thing out up north this year. A smallmouth deal. And like I called Wade too. It was a tournament, a smallmouth tournament, a well-known lake in Hayward. And I call him like, dude, this might be ugly.
Well, we could talk about that, right?
Yeah, not the technique, but yeah, we put a beating on him.
Sure,
yeah.
Sure. Well, without talking about the technique, obviously, or was it all about that?
It was It was the technique and like just finding a certain type of fish.
Yeah.
That were relating to a certain, just like a certain group of fish that weren't targeted. And yeah, it was a beatdown. And then there was a lot of rumblings after the tournament because we were around all kinds of people and we were peeling them and they weren't. And so when I had to leave like right away, like we basically weighed in and like I had to get back to go actually to a Whiskey Myers concert, which was awesome.
Sounds wonderful.
So it was awesome backstage.
I'd love to see them.
It's badass. So we didn't hang around, but then after the tournament, I had people come up and be like, yeah, there were a lot of people talking about what was going on. I'm like, whatever. So yeah. But I've learned, but I put my time in to learn this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a few things like that.
Everybody does.
Yep. And every cool thing like that has been putting your time in.
Yeah, putting your time in.
Yep. I forgot what I was going to ask, but Oh, yeah. So those fish that aren't targeted, right? That's what we're unlocking with forward-facing sonar. So you think that there's that many fish we're not targeting that we still have a ways to go? Because to me, once everybody starts targeting those fish that aren't being targeted, what about the fish that we used to target? Like that to me is where the sport will go eventually. Is it's going to go back to the John Cox kind of way once this goes full circle. And I know they won't stop eating bait, but if they get caught enough, when there's a clicking next to them, they might be more reluctant to eat bait when there's clicking around.
Yeah,
or something.
I'm not saying it's going to.
And I don't want to give fish credit either here.
That's the thing is like fish are. I mean, yeah, I think they will get conditioned to some extent, but I don't know if a fish remembers the next year if it ate a drop shot. You know what I mean?
That
if
makes
it's
sense.
Sitting on the rock pile and they see a whatever the hell's on your drop shot come by, there's probably a good chance that a lot of them are still going to eat it, even though they've been caught on it before. So I don't know about. I don't think it'll ever get to the point where you don't go look for those fish. Because that's just, here's the thing is those fish have been out there for years. They've always been out there doing, like Champlain, what was going up there, which was freaking crazy.
They didn't do that because we were fishing for them elsewhere.
They didn't go. Didn't go out there because everybody fished all the rock piles. And we're not sitting on this rock pile anymore.
Yeah.
They were like, I'm going to go out here because there's 10 billion alewives that can just swim around and eat one whenever I want.
Yeah.
I don't have to sit on this rock and wait for a crawdad to come by or go rooting around in the rocks.
Right.
So I don't think that those fish eating those, unless the bait changes, if all of a sudden the bait is gone, then they'll go back to getting in the rocks and getting in the grass, which you're still fishing the rocks and in the grass, but it's not. The thing with that type of fishing, and the thing that I like about it, for a lot of reasons, is like say you go out and you before forward facing sonar or whatever, and you graphed around and you found this little frickin' rock pile that was full of them, right? And you caught them. You had this secret spot for years, and you caught them, and all of a sudden the guy sees you. Well, the guy can idle over and just mark the rock pile and fish it.
Yep.
And then everybody sees him there, and then before you know it, everybody drives right to that rock pile and catches those fish. Then they become conditioned if there's a group of fish that live on that rock pile. But these basin fish, like you could see me out there, and you drive out there the next day, and there ain't anything there. Like if the bait's not there, the fish aren't going to be there.
That was going to be my question to you is like, so there's bait there. Yeah. They're out in the basin eating the bait, right?
Or wherever they are, flats. I say
but the
basin,
bait leaves. The bait's gone, right? Do they then go pull over to a rock pile, or do you think they swim
They're going
to
with
the other
bait?
So those are the fish that swim
they just go with the
end
bait.
to end on that lake.
Yeah, the big term now is pelagic. The fish are pelagic, which they've said that if you're a smallmouth fisherman, you do see that a lot, and we just understand it better now. Where you'd pull up on this point, and you'd just murder them, and then you'd go back there and you wouldn't catch them again, or you would sit there all day, and all of a sudden you'd catch them. And you'd be like, oh, they started biting. It's like, well, no, they just swam their asses. They happened to be swimming by.
I see some of that.
Not all the time.
No, sometimes, like what forward-facing sonar showed me is when I think they're not there.
They're there.
Oh, they're there.
Yeah.
They just ain't biting.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying with the why I have enjoyed, which I've only targeted those fish like that a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
A couple times that I've done it. Champlain was the main one.
Yep.
And I liked it because you couldn't, like, you had to find them every day.
Mm-hmm.
You had to find them, and like it wasn't like I was pulling up on one waypoint and casting to it. It was like, all right, and it was like you're hunting for them. I really enjoyed it. So
since end of tournament season this year, I have made that my mission.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's going down or not in this state, I really honed in, dedicated myself to it, and I totally get what you're saying with that. But It just doesn't go down on every lake.
No,
up
it
here.
does. It doesn't, and that's the thing too. That people are like, "Oh, this is gonna ruin every fishery."
Not
It's
up
like
here.
it doesn't happen on. You can't go do it everywhere.
No.
You mean you can utilize forward-facing sonar everywhere you go, but it doesn't. What happens on Champlain doesn't happen in, especially around here. I mean, maybe it does.
Certain lakes.
Certain lakes it will if they got
Up north a little more.
Yeah, it does.
Them shiner, smelty, smelt lakes.
Yep.
and-
Cisco lakes and
Cisco.
stuff, but it's not like it's not gonna like kill every fish in the lake like these jers talk about.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, oh no, I'm not gonna be able to catch them anymore. It's like it's not gonna do that.
So we know how you feel about Randy Blockett without even asking you. It's good to know.
Yeah, Randy's he's a dandy. He pisses me off, but he's smart. I mean, he's making a lot of money. He just doesn't have any. You know, it's just funny because he talks about technology and how it's so bad and how horrible and wrecking the sport. But then the next breath, he tells you, make sure you go on my website and buy all these waypoints from me. He does that. He'll like
This isn't technology.
yeah, no. But
Nope.
here, I want you to buy these 40 waypoints that I put on this lake map that I've never fished that you're going to catch them on.
Randy, at one point the typewriter was technology. It still is, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Or he's like, this is just, it's pricing all these anglers out of the sport. We're pricing these anglers out. But hey, I want you to go buy these Megabass jerkbaits. They're $30 a piece. I want you to go buy them, and here's my Tackle Warehouse link, so then I get credit for it. And that's what makes me mad is like these people do it and think it's the gospel of fishing, but he's just manipulated everybody into thinking that, he's got this anti-technology, anti-world right now, but he's just frickin' making all this money off all these people that listen to everything he says but don't think about actually what he's doing. That's what makes me mad with him is it's like, dude, come on. Like, get real.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's not even the only reason he's irrelevant in bass fishing anymore is because of all this stuff he does.
He's got us talking about
He's
him.
got us talking about him. That's what I'm saying. He's
Yeah.
a genius for that regard because
Props to you, Randy.
because he's making money while I'm not. You know what I mean? He's killing it.
I don't think there's any other pro that's won less shit that I've talked about on this channel.
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know?
back in the 70s, yeah, he did win, I think.
And granted, when I say that, I'm not saying that Randy Blockett's a bad fisherman.
No.
Or that I could take him tomorrow down in Alabama. No, I probably couldn't. He spent a lot of time down there.
Yeah,
you know,
maybe.
but
I don't know. But yeah,
maybe.
now it seems like all he does is
I don't know. I'd maybe scope a few.
Yeah, exactly. He'd be up throwing his freaking jitterbug or whatever.
According to him, I should beat him every time, though.
Yeah,
down there.
yeah, it's guaranteed.
Yeah.
He's a freaking idiot.
But it's like pricing people out of the sport. Why isn't he bitching about boats and motors?
well, see,
and
it's funny you
like,
brought that up.
okay.
The year I fished the
it's
Opens.
the cheapest thing on the
Yeah.
damn freaking.
The year I fished the Opens, he fished the first year or the only
Did you know
year.
power poles cost more than live scope?
Yeah, exactly. Don't think
I
about that.
guarantee you need those.
Yeah, I gotta
right?
have them. But so he had this big article on Bassmaster, right? And I thought it was cool. I'm gonna fish the entire season out of this Ranger RT aluminum boat with a 150 because this sport's just getting too expensive, and I want to prove a point that you can do this with this aluminum boat, and that's what I'm doing all year long, right? And he fished, I think, all 8 Opens or whatever. Guess how many he fished out of that boat? The first one was the only one I seen him in with it. And he made this big deal about it, fishing out of this aluminum boat, and then he shows up in a 20-foot bass boat every other tournament. It's like, you're a freaking turd. So, but once again, I'm like, that's cool. And like, I had thought about that ever since then because I got a bad taste in my mouth from him when he did that. And so I like, did I just dream that up? That he had that article, and then I looked it up and found it. I'm like, no, this turd did this whole big article about how the sport's too expensive and how it's pricing everybody out, and he's gonna make a point to fish all the Open. You should, when we're done, look it up and read it. And then he fished one tournament out of that boat, the first one on Kissimmee Chain. So that's just been his MO since he's, hasn't done well in tournaments. He's just like, but he's making tons of money now. So
Hey, to each your own. Hope
Yep.
you like your sleep at night.
yeah.
But like back to Koya and Taku a little bit. I heard those guys are super secretive about like everything.
I've never said a word to Koyu. I mean, he doesn't speak a whole lot of English at this point, but they're very secretive. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Taku is to a certain extent, but Taku like goes and fishes with other elite guys. Like he fishes with, I think he fished with Jordan Lee. I think he fished with. I know he fished with freaking Austin last year.
Yep.
So I think he probably is a little more open about some of the stuff, but yeah, they got secrets for sure.
I'm wondering, like, did Koya catch him on what he caught him on Champlain, or what Bass said he caught him on?
I'm sure he caught some of them on that, but
Do you think he, like, was it a jackal drift fry?
I think he uses that a lot. I mean, I think
I've caught some bass on it.
I don't even own one. That's the first one I've ever actually seen in my.
That's a beat up one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I caught a bunch on that one.
Yeah. Does it actually like wiggle when you
With that head,
too heavy?
no, with the line tie on that head, low key. That's the key.
That's a cool jig head.
And with the bill.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets this going. When you do that biwa shake, that hook angle gives it a rolling action, or accents a rolling. I gave
Yeah.
Bob some.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's different. I don't know. I'm learning. I'm like in the infancy but I've been playing a lot with different stuff, just trying to learn, and I still have so much to learn on
Yeah.
that. But
I do too.
you know, it's day to day. But like, I just wonder. Because to me it makes a big difference, kind of like those little subtle things I've noticed make a big difference on a fish committing to your bait on forward facing. So I was just wondering if he was like, how much those guys were holding back, because you can't really see when their back's faced to you.
No,
and they're
yeah.
it provides that opportunity.
Yeah, they're definitely holding back something. I mean, all of us are holding back some stuff, but I think he does catch them a lot on that. You know, the Sakamata shad or whatever it's called, that depth thing's a big deal. A lot of guys use that.
I can't catch him on that.
I don't own any of them.
I got a couple packs. How do they rig it? On
I
a
don't
jig head?
know, jig head or like just Texas rigged, like with a belly weighted hook, the big one. I'm talking like Bob to throw that big one.
Florida, I think a
And,
fluke is
Like
freaking money.
Kenta's a big Sakamata shad. Like he's always got them.
Really?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I've not caught a bass on them.
I
I
don't
thought
even-
there was a couple lakes I was going to. And I
Yeah,
didn't.
I don't own any of them, and I'm a tackle buyer. Like I buy a lot of tackle if it's something I think is cool. Like I buy a lot of weird stuff.
Me too.
So-
Because you've had those light bulb moments,
Yeah.
and after this, I got a couple questions for you on that, because I've been playing a lot with that stuff. But it's almost like you can go crazy trying to find the right bait, and it seems like 8 out of the 10 of them don't end up working out
No.
like I had hoped, but 2 out of the 10 of them
Yeah.
usually do.
Yeah, yeah. There's always something. And there's always some. That's the other thing with me too. Is like if there's something that I want to learn about and learn how to do, like I'll do it. I'll take the time to go commit and learn how to do it.
Yep.
So I know what I'm doing when the situation pops up.
You glide baiter?
Just getting into it.
I'm
I've
just
been
dabbling.
buying a lot of them. I caught the first 2 I've ever caught in my life actually on the Mississippi, practicing for a tournament I fished a month ago. I found this giant school of largemouth. There was a lot of them, and I was catching them on anything. And I had this. It was I don't know if you've seen the Tado Customs one, dude. It's badass. But so I had it rigged up because I wanted to mess around with. Like I'm gonna throw this because I know there's so many of them here, and I caught 2 like 2.5, 3 pounders.
Sick, yeah.
First 2 I've ever caught on a glide bait.
Cool.
So I had on fork the one year, I had a couple big ones roll on it, but I never caught one. So
Dude, I don't know what it is about giant walleyes and a Spro Chad Shad, but like 3 outings with the Spro Chad Shad, I think I caught a 29-inch walleye.
Really?
Each time.
yeah,
Hoping it was a smallmouth. But I
Yeah.
think, you guys on the walleye circuit, pick up some Chad Shads. They catch big
yeah.
walleyes.
There's a lot of different things they could do too. Yeah, the walleye guys that we do.
But heard a little bit about that, and I think it maybe goes both ways. Besides, we can't drown minnows. But
Yeah, or leeches. Yep.
Right. Well, shit, dude. I guess so it's forward-facing sonar program. I do want to hear a little bit of forward-facing sonar tricks, like whether it's settings or, I'm always looking to learn with that. And everybody seems to use it a little bit different. Like Bob and I were talking about you kind of finding your own style with the forward-facing. And I think, you're always going to have tricks you're not going to share. But, I mean, generally speaking, are there some tricks with forward-facing that help you kind of dissect water faster or figure out a fish's mood faster? The toughest thing for me is staying on a fish to try enough different lures to figure out its mood, and that's something that I need to work on probably more.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, it's the biggest thing with it if you're out actually, casting at fish, especially moving fish, is just learning how to put the bait where it needs to be.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, Koyu he's no one better than him at it.
Yeah.
It's one thing when they're down on the bottom and you could throw a drop shot in front of them and it's going to stop in front of them. But when they're up higher and they're moving, to get to learn, and it's nothing you can really explain. You just got to do it. And I feel like I'm pretty good at it, but, trying to lead, which way is it swimming, how fast is it going, and then I'll kind of like pan forward and get the motor pointed where I think I need to cast,
Yeah.
There's a lot to that.
So much.
Yeah, and that's all just a matter of just doing it.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
Right.
And figuring out, if there's baits that show up better and, having the right transducer, that's the one thing is, a lot of people are just handicapped because they can't run the best shit.
Yeah.
They're getting paid by whoever and they can't run the best shit.
Sure.
So they can't see what I can see.
Yeah. Do you mess with your settings a lot?
A little bit, not a ton.
Just contrast, or
I'll mainly just this sensitivity or whatever gain they call it. That's about it.
Sure.
I've tried like the TVG settings and a few of that stuff, but I it's mainly just the forward range and the gain. That's about it for the most part. I don't get super crazy on the other stuff.
So I know, like, we used to practice by scanning quite a bit, doing that, and I found myself idling less than I used to just because of the technology we have up front now, I guess. And I've always been curious about this. If a guy just scoped around in practice and didn't do a whole lot else, like, do you do a lot of that? Like, is that something that...
Yeah, on certain lakes.
Sure.
On certain lakes I will. Like, say you go to a timber lake, well, you can't really idle in the timber because
Sure.
you just are wrecking everything.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so now like I did that a lot on Seminole, where I just put the trolling motor down and I just wandered around, and then you'd find something, whatever, an old stump down in the timber or a brush pile in the timber.
Yep.
So that's where, like in the past, you couldn't effectively graph that stuff. You still can't idle it. Like you could not, once you get off the boat lane on Seminole, you cannot idle, or you will be, unless you like have a little path plotted through there, but you will be up on a freaking piece of timber.
Jeez.
You just can't. Same with fork.
Yeah,
Fork's
that's
the
what I've
same
heard
way.
about.
So then, you can just put the trolling motor down and start wandering around, and and then all of a sudden you find something, or you see a group of fish hanging out somewhere. I do that a lot on them lakes, but like, say I go to like, a Gunnersville or Pickwick, which I'm by no means a ledge fishing expert, but like where I can just then you're just graphing.
Yeah.
You're graphing with your side imaging, where you can actually use it and look for schools of fish or a rock pile or a brush pile, whatever it is. So I still do a lot of that. I feel like I'm a lot better at side imaging than I am at forward facing. So, I mean, I'm good. I feel like I would put myself in the good category on forward facing sonar. I wouldn't put myself in the great category.
I wouldn't even put myself in the good category yet.
There's only a handful of people that I would put in the great category.
Agreed.
There's a lot of good guys and there's a handful of great guys. But I use my forward facing a lot just for being more efficient, casting more efficiently.
That's a big
And
thing.
a lot, it doesn't get like everybody's like, well, you're just casting at a fish. But a lot of times, them fish are on the bottom and you don't see them until you put something over the top of them, or you're casting at a grass clump. And even with 360, like you would cast and you'd drag. Okay, yeah, I'm coming over it. But, you would have to maybe take 5-10 casts before you hit it. Where with forward facing, I'd be like, cast, okay, now my worm's falling
Hit it.
10 foot in front of it. I got to wind up because I didn't cast far enough.
Yeah.
And then cast, all right, I'm going to land right on I want to just tickle it over the top and drop it on the front side of it. That is where I'm good at that.
Yeah.
I'm really good at that. And that doesn't get talked about. Everybody talks about just seeing the fish cast into the fish, but it makes you a lot more efficient at fishing structure.
I agree
Just
with that.
making an accurate cast.
For me, that's been...
Yes.
I think I'm good at that part of it because that's what I've utilized it for. I've just been curious. This, to me, would be just an interesting experiment, and I've always questioned this. If you were to, let's say you took 3 days, and you just scoped an area for 3 days, and you just dissected how those fish acted at what time of day and how they used this based on the weather, and you just took 3 days of data just watching that all go down, what would you know after those 3 days, for execution? And I've questioned that if that is an efficient potential way to prepare. And to me, I can't get myself to do it per se, but I was going to run it by you anyway.
Yeah, I think there's a scenario. That's what I did on Champlain.
Yeah.
I spent 2 of the 3 days in one area, but that's a different scenario. That's with fish chasing bait. If it's something where it's where you can't effectively see the fish because, that's just a big foul.
Just in cover.
You know what I mean? Depending on what there is for cover. And
right.
Because if a fish is down amongst rocks or even tight on a sand bottom, you can't see them that good unless you make them rise up. So I think you could do that and possibly do well if it's in the right area.
It's kind of a Nat Geo perspective, so to speak, right? It's like you may not see the fish, but what's the bait movement? What's you can usually see bait. And it's what's the movement of the environment and how does this environment act based on different winds, weathers, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think.
And I'm not saying I'm onto something there, but
I think you could do it if it was the right area. If you know it's a good area.
But then could you take that? Let's say you know that area that good, and how? I just have never looked at it that way or tried to think about it that way. But what if you knew that area and how everything acted based on weather? Couldn't you take that around the lake and run with it?
Possibly. I mean, you possibly could.
Those are the questions that run through my brain because I'm a crackhead.
That's getting into really advanced stuff that I think if it's like a Shatek chain for me, I've done that for years without forward-facing sonar, just knowing an area of the lake and what happens there throughout the day, throughout the spring, or whatever it is.
Yep.
So I know it would work,
right?
If you just immersed yourself in it enough to understand it completely,
right?
But that could, in a tournament setting, it could, bite you for sure. But
so can everything. From what I've learned, everything's a double-edged sword in this sport.
Yeah, that's the thing is picking up.
The thing that gets you the king spot also cuts your head off and makes you not the king anymore.
Yeah, that's part of the deal. I mean, like I said, I think we're just scratching the surface of what this technology is going to be able to do. And who knows what's going to come out next?
Dude, I know, right?
I mean, you think back side imaging. I mean, what are they going to do beyond this? And then, now we got 360, and now we got, what's going to come out now?
Well, whatever the military-industrial complex allows, I suppose, right? Because they've got anti-gravity,
who knows?
Who knows what's out there? But we know the fishing industry is way behind that.
Way behind. Yeah.
So it's out there already.
Look at fishing locators. Some of them are more advanced, but you could take a freaking phone out of your pocket, this little ass screen, and do everything you need to do in your life on it. But locators, I mean, there's a lot of advancements in them, but for the most part, for as big of a screen and all the stuff and how much you pay for them, it's just the capabilities of them is a blip compared to...
Look at world technology and look at fishing technology, and the evolution is completely slower.
Yeah, it's way slower. That's why I think there's engineers sitting there probably laughing at this whole fuss over forward-facing cylinder is like, oh my God, if they knew it, we can do actually.
Maybe we should wait to release the polarized sonar glasses.
yeah. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? It's just going to keep getting better. And I mean, just going from like the LVS 32 transition to the LVS 34 was a lot better.
Yeah.
Like what happens when they come up with the LVS 38 or whatever, you know?
Right.
You just don't know. They're not going to stop.
Nope.
And why would I don't want them to stop. I love that stuff.
Totally.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens in the future, but I mean, I don't think it's going to kill every fish. Like maybe it's going to probably devastate some crappie populations, but other than that, I mean, as far as bass, I don't think it's going to kill everything off, but
I don't think so. I think they use cover enough, hopefully.
Yeah, they will.
The largies.
Yep, they will. Yeah, especially largemouth. Yep.
So you're going to do some hunting?
Try to do some hunting.
Finally.
Yep, finally do some hunting, and then just I'm behind on making calls to sponsors. I haven't been. I did that Redfish Cup, came home for 3 days, went to Grand Lake for 7 days, and now I've been home for like 5 days since then. So I just haven't been home to do a lot of the stuff I need to get done. So go hunting, start trying to round up stuff for next year, and get ready. Hit the road. I go to Jamaica the last week of December and come home from that and frickin' head to Texas. So busy for me.
That's cool, man. Well, like, I don't know. Is there anything you wanted to get off your chest today before?
I don't think so. We covered a lot of stuff.
Dude, this is like super fun conversation. Very honored to have you, and you'll always be a star in the Bass Galaxy. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
I know your beer's been gone like 2 hours, but cheers, dude. Thanks again, man.
Yeah, no problem.
Pat Schlapper, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for tuning in.